Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 43. I am your somewhat under the weather host, Mo, and I'm joined as always by my comparatively healthy friends, Jody.
Me cago en todo lo que se menea.
And Billy.
Good evening.
Okay, Joe.
Yeah.
What was that?
That's the one I forgot to mention last time. That's my wife's favorite one. It means I shit on everything that moves. So stand still.
Amazing. I love that.
Oh, fucking hell.
Okay, well, as I hinted in the intro, I am somewhat under the weather. My whole family has a cold, so I apologize in advance for any breaking of my voice, like what just happened, and any sniffs and sniffles that make it through the editing process, and any screaming babies you might hear in the background during the course of this recording, because the girls do not sleep well
Listen,
when they have a cold.
Screaming babies in the background is just like a running threat for every podcast. At any moment, all hell might break loose behind us.
It's true. Vili, you're not at 100% health either, are you? You're shaking off the cobwebs from a late night.
No. Health is good. I've just got energy levels that's low.
We've been somewhat energy challenged in the last couple of episodes. I feel like I'm going to have to try and make a concerted effort. I hope this like cold medicine and throat lozenge combo I have going here doesn't affect my energy levels at all. Right. Let's talk about the Wheel of Time and not about my general health and my family. Right. In the last episode, you guys almost said famously broke down my enthusiasm for that specific stretch of the book because of Nynaeve in particular, and also Elayne's sort of irresponsible and just daft behavior.
Well, that's going to continue now, Moritz.
Yeah,
Don't get your hopes up.
It is. And I thought I should address it up front. I don't know. This might be me sort of just trying to sugarcoat what is plainly happening in front of us. But there is a specific interaction in the stretch that we'll get to now, where when I read it, I had a thought about like, okay, maybe this is actually intentional. Nynaeve's silly behavior, bad decisions, her general attitude, and just how she is portrayed is, I mean, it's actually hard to read, right? Like, I mean, we all love Nynaeve, and when you read these chapters, like, why did I love Nynaeve again? She's being such a little brat. But when she has that interaction with Egwene in Tel'aran'rhiod in these chapters, and she even has the whole like Egwene shoving the sort of, you know, the mixture for lying in her face, and afterwards she's like, oh, I'm going to have to sort of put her back in her place, sort of thing. I think what we are seeing here, whether it's intentional or unintentional, at least to me, it's reading as Nynaeve being stripped of that leadership position that she's carried in the books thus far, right? I mean, like we said before, she was sort of calling the shots when they went to Falme, and ever since then, pretty much since they were given their task to hunt down the Black Ajah, she was pretty much calling the shots between herself, Elayne, and Egwene. That's why Egwene was clashing with her the whole time. And now, unfortunately for Elayne, Egwene isn't around anymore. So Elayne is now the recipient of a lot of that behavior. But I think what is happening now, at least as I'm perceiving it in last episode's chapters and in the ones now, is Nynaeve being scaled back a bit in her sort of position of authority. Because as we know, Egwene is going to become the Amyrlin Seat, and Nynaeve is going to have to listen to her, and I'm sure we'll rehash that whole dynamic when they cross paths again, just to really hammer it home. But I think it might be because it is so just overt, right? Like we're recoiling at reading about it. Maybe I'm throwing RJ a bone here. Maybe he is specifically trying to paint Nynaeve in a less responsible, less calm and collected and leadership type role to make that transition more obvious, so that we don't always look to Nynaeve for leadership, and to let Elayne, you know, stand on her own two legs for a bit as well. We know that Elayne has sort of been carrying the detective skills and sort of the deduction and some of the planning and stuff. She's been making a lot of really, really good points during the investigation, where Nynaeve has only done real traditional leadership stuff, and she's not coming up with the good ideas necessarily. Anyway, that's me trying to explain away the vibe.
No, you're totally right.
You throwing a lot of bones there.
What? Billy and
Jody
I,
agrees,
opposites.
Billy doesn't.
No, totally. Like the
How
other
strange.
two are outstretching her at the moment. Like Egwene is ahead of her in her development, character-wise and power-wise and skills-wise.
100%.
Elayne is now in the situation that they're in. She is what is needed. They need to be pretending to be a lady and a servant, and the obvious choice is Elayne as the lady. So, like Nynaeve's being left behind, basically. She hasn't advanced in any direction, and it's pissing her off. And we keep forgetting that she's not that old. She's older, but she's still in her mid to early
she's
20s.
just taking it out on everyone that she can't channel
Exactly.
when she wants to channel. She's just being a brat.
That's a big one, Vil.
It's just all about her not being able to channel and not being able to, at a whim, touch this magical power. And the other girls are just doing it so easy, and they're walking it, and they upping levels. The XP's going up.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Elayne is powerful.
you do agree.
And she can channel at will.
Yeah, but I just like she's just being a big fat sook the whole time. I'm tired of it.
Maybe she's doing the Bruce Banner, trying to just always be angry so that she can channel easier.
So she can become the Hulk.
Yes.
She-Hulk. There you go.
Okay, so before we dive back into Nynaeve's abhorrent behavior and her just general shittiness, let's dive back into everyone's favorite section called Callbacks. All right. When Nynaeve has a realization about the age gap between Tom and Elayne, she quickly applies that to herself and Lan as well. And she thinks, oh, shit, Lan is old enough to be my dad. How old do you guys think Lan is?
128.
Okay, in dog years.
He's like Aragorn. He ages slowly, so he must be like 88 or something, you know?
He gets special power down the water bond.
I figured he was my age. Well, no, maybe a little bit older than me. Like maybe in his late 40s, 45, 48, in that age range.
Very close, Joe. He's 47.
Ooh, Jody for the win.
Nice.
What do I get?
I sort of... virtual pat on the back.
Oh, thank you very much.
I think in the last episode, I even said, yeah, he's 50s or something, isn't he? And when I read 47, it's like, oh, okay, that's actually a bit younger even than I thought. So if Nynaeve is 26, and which she is, and Lan is 47, then sure, if he fathered her at 21, he could be her dad. I mean, so technically, yes, he could be her dad.
Yes,
but it's not the Tom Elayne gap.
No,
I mean, Tom could be her grandfather.
Yeah, like Tom in my chapters, or one of the my chapter that I was reading, like in this series, like in this stretch, just like Morgase thinks of him as like when they were together, that how much he could have been her dad. Like
Yes,
Morgase thinks that. So like, Jesus, Elayne, keep it in your pants.
Exactly. Yeah. I wanted to elaborate a little bit on, we spent a lot of time talking about Rhonda Makura and, you know, what her relationship with the Seanchan could be. When does she tell them about fork roots? I want to just go double check that, you know, she hasn't already told them, because obviously we haven't covered that in the books yet. And a well-documented fact, our memory is quite hazy. But Rhonda Makura, the order of events is obviously it's what we've read now thus far. When Elida finds out that she lost Elayne and Nynaeve. That's why she has her punished in the front of all the villages in Moghedien. She has her flogged in town. And it's at that point that she turns against the Aes Sedai. She hates the Aes Sedai. And when the Seanchan then roll into town, she immediately goes to them and says, I will help you capture these women, blah, blah, blah. Here's how. And she tells them about Forkroot. What happens after that is when the Seanchan use Forkroot to great effect, she gains a lot of esteem and becomes part of Tuon's entourage.
Holy shit. I don't
Holy
remember
shit
that
is
at
right.
all.
No, me neither. I mean, I bet you that both times I read that section before, I had forgotten who Rhonda Mercura
Oh,
was
yeah.
by the time it rolled around. But not this time. Eh? Like, I mean, holy shit, Rhonda, well done. Even though, I
Well,
don't like what you've done,
Yeah.
but
It's
I can
impressive.
understand it. Yes.
did some commitment there.
I think it is noted in the story that she doesn't know how to behave around nobles and
Well,
royalty. Clearly not. Seamstress from Mardison. Then we briefly touched on Swan and her involvement with the Eyes and Ears network of the Blues. And at what point did she relinquish control of them? Did she retain them when she was Amyrlin Seat? And did she relinquish control of the Blues Eyes and Ears network when she was deposed? It's actually when she was raised to Amyrlin. She handed over the control of the Blue Ajah's Eyes and Ears because she ran it. She was basically the spy master for the Blue Ajah, and the Blue Ajah famously has the most extensive network of eyes and ears. But she hands them over to an Aes Sedai called Eildeen Stonebridge, who then takes over the Blues. But the Amyrlin has her own network of eyes and ears as well, which she never handed over after being deposed. That is something that would naturally happen as an Amyrlin succeeds the previous one. She would hand over, obviously, access to that network, and clearly that would not have happened here and didn't. So Swan still has access to that. And after they get back to Saladar, Eildeen is there, obviously all the Blues being exiled from the tower, fleeing the tower and joining the rebels. And she has a massive shouting match with Swan in the middle of everyone, and they have a big old argument about it. And eventually Swan actually does relinquish. Eildeen basically has to ask for it back. I don't know how they would control who controls the Eyes and Ears network, but Eildeen had to, be given it. Swan had to relinquish it in some way. And then Eildeen asked her to hand over the Amyrlin network as well. But then all the other Aes Sedai there agreed that the Blues shouldn't control both the Amyrlin network and the Blue network. So Swan actually retains that. Swan, I mean, later then obviously healed Swan again, retains that Amyrlin network of Eyes and Ears. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like a bonus prize for being deposed and stilled. You get to keep some random people
prize?
telling you stuff.
Consolation prize. Yes, Phil. Then we were a bit confused about Swan and how she thought that Whitecloaks are after her in Lugard, right? Like, I went and I read back that section. She leaves the inn after talking to Mistress Tharn, and two Whitecloaks come riding down the street. And they're sort of like looking at everyone, just riding down the street. And Swan is wearing a bonnet, so her face is sort of hidden. And she just sort of shrinks away. And in that moment, like we mentioned last time, she thinks to herself, I shouldn't have slunk away because they're probably looking for me. But there's no mention at that moment of the Whitecloaks, trying to call out for her or anything like that. But then when she meets up with Min at the Nine Horse Hitch or whatever the tavern is that Logain and Leanne are in, she tells Min that they must go now because Whitecloaks are asking about her. Is she just flexing her lying muscles there again? Maybe.
That's
Don't
what
know.
I said.
Maybe she's just worried. Yeah, it is what you said. Exactly. Min even goes so far as to wonder what Swan could have done because it's not like her to make mistakes. So, RJ, again, like putting in... I mean, there's no reason for the reader to know what Min is thinking about that unless it's to illustrate a point. Like, Swan does not usually make mistakes. And this maybe wasn't a mistake. So are they really after her? But then, as Villy and I were saying in the chapter with Gareth Bryan and his soldiers, Brian's man tells him that Whitecloaks have been asking about a girl that fits Mara's description, and they got real interested in her when they found out that she'd left town. So these guys are reliable in that sense. So, maybe Swan was lying and the Whitecloaks were actually looking for her. Like both those things can be true at the same time. We asked, did the messenger that rocked up in Core Springs before the men left with all the news about the Dragonborn having flat touched the sword, like blah, 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 all that stuff, if he caught up with them on the road, if he made it into the party that ventured off with Gareth, it's him. It's that guy that gives Gareth the message about the Whitecloaks looking for a girl that fits Mara's description.
Right.
His name is Barum Helly, something like that. But yes, he's the
nice
guy
job,
that
Morris.
puts his tongue in his cheek puts his tongue in his cheek when he's lying or when he's holding something back, and that's how Gareth knows. Out with it, Barum. Tell me what you want. So it is that same guy.
Okay. He's cool. I like him.
Then a nice little pedantic correction of myself. I said that Ibudar is an Aradoman. Again, I'm pretty sure I've done that before on the podcast. It is not. Ibudar is the capital of Altara, not Aradoman. So I pictured when Gareth is saying, these men are going to have to follow me all the way to Ibudar. I imagine them going, west and then north all the way up to Aradoman. It's not. It's just Altara, which is right down there in the south. Bandar Eben is the capital of
That's what I was going to say. Like those, I mean, Bandar Eben and Ibudar, I mean, I
and
get
Aradoman, like all 2-word names that mean nothing to me, really. But through a series of corrections in the callback section, I will educate myself on the capital cities of Randland. Vili, you asked what are the other animals that Valen Luca had at his menagerie, apart from the boar horses. He has 3 lions. He has 2 black bears with white faces that I assume are pandas.
Yes.
Balancing on a ball. Then there's one boar-like creature with a pointed snout and clawed toes from the Aiel West called a Kapar.
Yeah, what the hell is that?
It's a Kapar.
It's a Kapar, right?
No, it's made up, Phil. It's fantasy. It's not a real thing.
Is it not an anteater? They have very long claws to dig up the ant mounds, and they have pointy snouts.
Mm-hmm.
Ask Vili. Vili, you're the bloody game ranger.
They do.
There you go.
You get the giant one in Argentina. The giant
in the
anteater.
waist. Yeah.
Is it a tapir?
No, not a tapir. It's like
a giant anteater.
Giant anteater.
I think that's what it's called.
It's aptly named.
The giant anteater.
My kids have a jungle bingo game in which there's a giant anteater and a tapir, which is why I know what those animals are. That's the only reason from the kids' board game. And then obviously the elephants as well that we read about soon, and various birds and all kinds of stuff. So it's actually quite a
menagerie.
I almost said stocked, but populated menagerie. Yeah,
I would have said stocked. Yeah, I get what you mean.
I don't know. That seems inhumane.
Yeah.
We read about Valen Luca a couple of times, most notably in 2 major stretches. One of them is this one where Elayne, Nynaeve, Tom, and Julian travel to Saladar with him. He then goes on to Ibudar, and Matt and Tuon and the Aes Sedai that Matt saves from Ibudar and that whole group travel with him from Ibudar to somewhere else. But there's
Bandar
2
Eben?
long stretches. And he ends up marrying Littell, the bear handler, with
bear
the
lady.
sort of like dour expression. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, who are we talking about? Oh, Valen, yes. No.
Valen
okay.
Luca. Yeah.
Yeah.
And something else I read about him is that he actually, while he's coming onto Elayne, he actually falls madly in love with Nynaeve.
This dude's all over the place.
He is. Then we had a nice long chat about what dream Tel'aran'rhiod could the girls be traveling with and where did they find them. I went back to see which of the Black Ajah sisters had dream Tel'aran'rhiod. We know that Amiko definitely had one because she was sitting outside of the girl's cell in the Stone of Tyr, right? And she was sort of nodding in and out of Tel'aran'rhiod. Mm-hmm. And Egwene first shielded and then stilled her. Joya was the other Black Ajah sister that Egwene found standing in the heart of the stone. No mention made of any kind of Tel'aran'rhiod from her, though. Joe, you mentioned that when they save Amathera from the Panox Palace, that Tamail, the Black Ajah sister that was making her sing the bawdy songs, was in Tel'aran'rhiod. She wasn't at the time of rescuing Amathera. They were just in the palace, awake. There was another time when I think Nynaeve or someone sort of like was flitting around the palace, maybe even Egwene, sort of like just searching. Maybe that chapter called Need, right, where they were trying to think of like how they're going to find this thing, and they ended up in the Panox room behind the couch that Tamail was sitting on.
Yeah,
and they sort of just dropped down because when Amathera noticed someone arrive, she had a reaction, and then Tamail didn't see them. So there she was in Tel'aran'rhiod. So it's a pretty safe assumption that she had one. I read that section where they best her and they sort of bind her and they save Amyrlin. No mention of picking up a Tel'aran'rhiod or going through her belongings or anything like that. And then we also had a sort of discussion about the things that fell from the pedestal that was hit by balefire in the sort of museum section of the Panarch's Palace, because the pedestal disappeared, but the seal and the other things in that display just hit the ground, sort of confirming, oh yes, Quaindiar can't be destroyed by balefire. And no mention of them being Tel'aran'rhiod or anything. They're just figurines, because when Nynaeve comes up to that pedestal, there's a number of figurines in there and a bigger one in the middle. And then she realizes the one in the middle is an illusion. And it's the seal behind it. Moghedien had hid it in plain sight. And so all they say about the other figurines is that they are, or that you can infer is that they're Quaindiar, not Gaebril. So still no crystal clear indication of what the two are that they could be talking about. And it's either in last week's chapters or this stretch of chapters where it's specifically mentioned that they are Tel'aran'rhiod, relevant to Korean and Nadal's study. So some of those Tel'aran'rhiod I just listed out, these girls have, because I would have thought Moiraine would take the one that Emiko had, probably the one that Joya had, but maybe not. Maybe she gave one to the girls. Don't know.
So what you're saying is we still don't know.
What I'm saying is that I can't find any evidence in the text or online about which ones they are, and therefore I might have to just let this lie and assume they have two other Tel'aran'rhiod. I don't know if they're counting the stone ring that, I mean, was Korean studying the sort of the flecked stone ring that they have that they keep using, the best one.
It's the one
she was studying. That's why Varen had it.
Varen had it. She studied it. Varen squirreled it because it wasn't written down, or
because it was the best one.
So maybe that's it. Maybe the two Tel'aran'rhiod of Korean and study that they are referring to here are the stone ring that we know, and then maybe the one from Tamali from the Panarch's Palace. Another long chat we had is about Birgitte. When did she live? What is her deal? And some of our listeners wrote in about this as well, but what I've read about it is that she was absolutely around in the Age of Legends and before. And she was known by different names, and all of this was before, even the time of Arthur Hawkwing. And now in our current, turning of the wheel, we know that Arthur Hawkwing is leading the Heroes of the Horn. So there may be an element of the way people perceive Heroes of the Horn might be influenced by the most recent version, or the version of that person that they would be most familiar with, or something along those lines, right? Like maybe they even present differently to different people, or maybe they assume the persona or the visage of their last incarnation. Because Moghedien and Birgitte actually had a run-in in the Age of Legends. So before they were sealed away, Birgitte was active. I'll read some quotes just now, but she foiled a plan. Birgitte foiled a plan that Moghedien had to trap Lews Therin. And Moghedien somehow knew that Birgitte was one of the Heroes of the Horn. Birgitte doesn't know how. And it's at that point that she swore that she would make Birgitte weep for the rest of eternity, like, do something outside of the power of the creator or something along those lines. But long-time listener Mick Halverson wrote in, and he by his own admission went full nerd on this because he also wanted to know. So he sent through a couple of points with a couple of quotes from books that are relevant to this. He says that Birgitte had hundreds of lives, so she had to have some of them before the Age of Legends, and like I just said, she knew Moghedien and stuff, so that would explain the thing that I was sort of harping on, that she had not seen them much since they were sealed away or since they came out. Like that reference of the sealing away and their entrapment is because she's known them from before that. In the Fires of Heaven, Dreams of Galad chapter is one of the chapters in our next episode, which we will get to. But Birgitte had not even known who Moghedien was so long ago in the Age of Legends, when she foiled Moghedien's finely wrought plan to lay Lews Therin by his heels. But Moghedien had known her. Only Birgitte, Tiedra, as she had been then, had died before she could deal with her. Death was no punishment, no end, not when it meant living on here. Okay, here's another quote from The Shadow Rising. This is actually that chapter called Need, where I think it's Nynaeve that meets Birgitte and Gaebril. And Nynaeve asks her, Birgitte, what did Moghedien promise you? And then Birgitte says, she knew what I was, even though I did not know. How? I do not know. Birgitte glanced at Cain. He appeared absorbed in his sword, but she lowered her voice anyway. She promised to make me weep alone for as long as the wheel turns. She said it as a fact that simply had not yet happened. So there's other names that Birgitte was known by as well, like Marion, which has ties to Maid Marion and, Robin Hood, archery, that sort of stuff. Jonah, which I think is a reference to Joan of Arc, and lots of other legends like the Valkyries and the Amazons, all sorts of links throughout the story peppered in there to sort of harken back to those things. So
cool. Thanks,
there
Moritz.
we go. Thanks, Mick.
And Mick.
No, Mick. I did some. I did the surface level stuff, and Mick did the hard work and found actual quotes and stuff that supported.
Well, thank you, Moritz, for reading all of Mick's research. And thank you, Mick, for doing the research. Thanks for going full nerd. I'm sure you enjoyed it.
Then we've got a new contributor, Levi, who wrote in twice in this week because he's busy catching up to the pod. He must be burning through it at a steady clip, because the first message he sent in after he listened to the episode where we went through the glass columns in Ruidian, and he just sent through, he says by his own admission, more of a question than an answer or a contribution, but he asked, is it Cumin, Chan's grandson? Anyway, the young Ahil man who was in the circle with Ogier singing with Somestha, like walking through the Zemai fields, blah, blah, blah. They see the soldiers sitting off to the side next to a Jokar with their, shock visors and their shock lances and stuff. This is all playing out during the War of Power. So there are already Trollocs and Madral fighting. So he asked, do Trollocs and Madral ever use shock lances, which we know definitively from, supplementary material are like energy rifles. So did Trollocs ever fight with laser guns? That's basically
God, I hope they did.
Which I thought was an interesting thought. And I read up about it, and there's a lot of talk about during that time as society was collapsing, there were these things referred to as standing weaves, which would allow anybody to use a Tel'aran'rhiod. But now, when they're sort of, I'm assuming they're quote unquote one power, like power sources, like power stations, as some of those became decommissioned and fell apart and that sort of stuff, these standing weaves ceased to exist. And then maybe, shock lances and those things didn't work anymore. Maybe they were dependent on those. Trollocs also, blunt force weapon, right? Like you're not giving a Trolloc a gun to go snipe someone from a distance. You're basically putting a rusty sword in his hand and saying, run that way and don't stop until you've killed everything. So who knows? But interesting thought.
I'm sure a Trolloc definitely bludgeoned somebody to death with a shock lance. That probably happened at some point.
And like I said, Levi must be going at a steady clip, because that episode was a little while ago. And then his next contribution was, we were talking recently about Matt, the vision that either Egwene or Perrin has of Matt naked with his Ashandarai and his and his medallion. Levi thinks that is probably a reference to when Matt is kept as a sort of sex toy pet for Tylan.
I've forgotten about
is that
Tylan.
An Ibudar? I think that's an Ibudar. I think that's where Matt escapes from.
I'm not gonna go there. My opinions are not.
I feel 86% confident in that statement.
That's a very accurate prediction.
That's an A. Mick had written in about not just Birgitte, but about Swan. In fact, Mick Halverson, Fed Up X-Fed on Twitter, and Ian Yellen all wrote in about this one, about what Swan's intention for Logain is. A couple of the guys wrote in. Ian gave us some extra detail that I'll get into in a second, but the rest of the guys were saying that Swan is planning on using Logain to prove that, firstly, the Reds were going around gentling men around the countryside without taking them back to the tower. But importantly, and maybe more damningly even, is that the Reds were approaching men who can channel and convincing them to proclaim themselves as the Dragon Reborn and setting up false dragons. I think that both Logain and Mazrim Taim actually referenced this happening at some point.
Why? Oh no. Did I just open another can of worms?
Well, Ian wrote in about this, and I think he was saying that they were trying to sort of increase their own profile and their sort of standing within the tower.
Because they're running out of men to gentle. And they're becoming
Well,
more and
probably
more
that as well.
useless. And they need to show that they're still needed and that they're still relevant. Look at all these
And
false
that
dragons.
the world is dangerous. These false dragons coming about. If it's not for the Reds, we're all doomed, like
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Hmm.
Ian actually goes one step further, and he says that Elida, being a high-profile Red herself, was complicit in this. And as a sort of side note, not relevant to what Swan is trying to do, Elida actually ensured that Tom found out about Owen, and that Owen was also part of this Red's activity to get Tom out of the palace in Camelin and lessen his influence on Morgase so that she can have more influence on Morgase. And as we know, and this is actually stuff we cover in these chapters as well, right?
Yeah.
When Tom comes back from Owen's death and everything, he's pissed off at the Aes Sedai, and he actually snaps at Morgase about being a tower puppet and everything. The only time he ever gets mad at her, and that's when she chases him away and says, you don't get to say that sort of thing. And so Elida helped orchestrate the rift between Tom and Morgase, and Tom's entire attitude towards Aes Sedai in general and all of that.
That sounds totally like an Aes Sedai plan. I believe
It does.
I am 100% certain that happened.
Yeah, but I mean, how cool! Just like stories within stories within stories, right? Like we've had sort of, even when Tom has told his side of the story recently, it hasn't been with all the detail. And when we read Morgase's side of the story here, it's also only just her side. She doesn't understand all of it. And now with like an extra bit of info from Ian, it all sort of clicks together. You're like, oh, fuck, this is how this whole fucking drama played out. Okay. And that, my friends, is it.
Phew.
Callbacks.
That was a long one.
You're losing Villy, man. We almost lost him there.
That's not my fault. That's Villy's fault.
All right. I thought you were going to blame Mick or somebody.
No, absolutely not.
Don't. It's not your fault,
This
guys.
is what we want.
Keep sending stuff in. This is awesome.
This is the flavor that I'm looking to get out of the story this time around. Exactly this. All right. Before Villy passes out on his microphone and I have to edit out that noise, let's quickly recap where we went to last time and then jump straight in. So previously on Blood and Ashes, Rhonda Makura drugs Nynaeve and Elayne with Falkroot with a plan to send them back to Tarvalon, but Tom and Julian save the day, and they all escape in a carriage posing as a lady and her retinue. They meet Val and Luca on the way to a small town where they bed down, and Nynaeve meets with Birgitte and then Egwene and Moiraine in Tel'aran'rhiod. And then Swan, Leanne, Min, and Logain reach Lugard, where Swan finds a clue to their next destination, which is Saladar. Gareth Bryan and his geriatric squad are hot on their heels.
Geriatric squad.
Which brings us finally, Villy, to chapter 15, called What Can Be Learned in Dreams. Why don't you tell us what can be learned in dreams?
Apparently not a lot, because Nynaeve doesn't learn.
Anti-climax Villy.
Big time. Oh, she's such a Debbie Downer.
Nynaeve was just reprimanded by the wise ones, and she's now going back to her room in wherever she is. Forget to write that down now. But she doesn't. She decides to dream herself into the tower, and specifically into Swan's office. But it's like, no dice. It's not working. She can't. So she decides, okay, cool. What else is familiar? And dreams herself into Miriam's study, which is still as it was for generations of Aes Sedai.
Sheriam.
Miriam. Yes, that's what I said. Sheriam. So she decides to start walking from Sheriam's, or the Mistress of Novices, study to the Amyrlin Seats and gets sort of to the ante-room or what used to be Leanne's office or pre-office or whatever you want to call it. And there she gets a quick viewing of, or not a viewing, Elayne having a dream and dreaming herself in there and scolding at her, what are you accepted doing here? And then next, before she decided she's going to get out of there, and she faded away. And Nynaeve writes us off to like, someone's really having a nightmare thinking that Elayne is the Amyrlin Seat. She did notice that she wore the stole and the blue was out of the stole, which was quite interesting. She's just erased him from history there. Now the next minute she goes into the office and realizes why she couldn't dream herself into Swan's office, because it is completely changed. Furnishings has changed, stools and different paintings, roses and flowers is different and all of that. And she's like, why would the woman change her? All of this. And the next minute there's a young redhead accepted walking into the office, and she's like not winking out. And just before Nynaeve sort of says, okay, it's time to pull the plug on this adventure, she says, like the redhead confronts Nynaeve and says, calls her out by name, like, Nynaeve, you do not listen. You do not understand. And it turns out that it's Egwene. And here comes a big dynamic shift. Egwene whips Nynaeve with her mouth repeatedly, giving her proper lashings. It's
she does.
Yeah, and really gets almost broken down to the point of trying to please Egwene, like wanting to eventually, in this exchange, also coming out that she lied to her and the wise one about the fork root. She did drink it, and her and Elayne both were just like sacks that were going to get taken to Avalon, and God knows what else would have happened to them. And Egwene just again through all of this, like making the point that she's not listening. This is a really dangerous place. Like she herself says, the Forsaken are plotting, but she's not learning. And Egwene creates a nightmare to illustrate this and basically do what Bane did to her, or was it one of the wise ones to her, and it's to zombie
Amys, I think.
Amys, yeah,
had that crocodile like bite her in the face or something.
Subtle.
No, then we've got Nynaeve now being attacked by zombie rapists.
Jesus, can you think of anything worse? Zombie rapists.
I think they just wanted to bite her.
I don't know. They were tearing at her dress, and she flipped out, like screaming for Egwene to please make this stop. She does, and she's like, "Look, this is anything. This is something light that could happen. If you get caught in someone's nightmare, you can die." Like, start heeding the warnings. But seeing as we're both here, let's go and do some intel. So they head off now into what is Elayne's office, or Egwene sends Nynaeve into Elayne's office, start rummaging, read documents, while she goes to what used to be Leanne's desk and starts rummaging through there. Now, Nynaeve finds some letters with about the Marshal General for the army of Saldea, that him and his army can't be found. And then sort of the letters disappear in these. It's like weird World of Dreams stuff happening. Queen Tenobia refuses to cooperate with the Aes Sedai. No reports from the Eyes and Ears in Tanchico has been heard for weeks. Ilian and Mirandy's tension is eased, but Pedronal is claiming his good deeds have caused that. And she started reading a report about the Blues gathering, and then all of a sudden there's a cry of, "Oh no!" And she immediately dreams a bludgeon, what do you call it? Like a bat. Cudgel to go and break a skull. She storms out the office only to find Egwene then saying, "Yeah, Elayne's the Aes Sedai." not
The Amyrlin.
Aes Sedai, Amyrlin Seat, and reads the whole thing with her full sort of names, the Keeper of the Flame, stolen, all of that. And she also found a letter that Moiraine is now sort of wanted. Like, she needs to be apprehended and by any means and be shipped in a box to the tower. So that has been issued.
So that's the thing like Elayne likes. She likes shipping people to the tower in boxes. It's just one of her kinks, I imagine.
Tell me, man. This is where Nynaeve eventually confesses a lie as well to Egwene. It wasn't before that. And this big shift in this relationship is now clear. Egwene then does exactly what Nynaeve did to her when she was young and she got caught out lying, and conjures up some herbal remedy that's likened to slime out of a dam. And Egwene thinks later that if she pushed and kept on pushing, she would have actually been able to make Nynaeve drink it. That is like, she sort of revels in this, what new power do I have over Nynaeve? This is a new dynamic. She's on the back foot for the first time probably in her life that Egwene has sort of found out there. But that with that, Egwene's like, look, enough of this now, get out of here before it's too late. And she makes herself disappear, not like lights out, totally different to what Nynaeve is used to, because she's so inexperienced, obviously. And then she dreams herself back into her bed as well. Now, we switch then to an Egwene perspective. Then Egwene wakes up in a tent. It's super cold. She channels some fire and ties off the fire weave so she can get it hot just to change, because she now needs to find Moiraine to break all this news to Moiraine. She eventually, when it's warm enough, gets herself dressed up and ready to go out. Passes Rand's tent because they were on the one corner. Rand is still awake with Jason Dale. Poor Avienda is outcast outside, just wanting to go to bed and sleep. And well, she's like, okay, cool. She feels the channeling coming from Moraine's tent and sort of goes over and sees her and then breaks all this news to her. But she says to her, like, well, why are you eavesdropping on Rand? Didn't you promise that you wouldn't do it? And then Moiraine reads her promise or whatever back, and it's Aes Sedai words to the T. It's like, we'll give him his distance. That didn't say I'm going to stop listening.
Yeah.
Well, Egwene then tells her that she's a wanted woman. She's got a warrant out for her arrest. She tells her about Swan being replaced. We don't know yet what happens to her, but can only imagine. So Stilling is kind of in the thought there. And with all of this breaking of terrible news, she expected a more, I suppose, visceral or emotional reaction out of Moiraine, which is just not there. She's like, we've made our beds. We know what we're in for. We know what we were up for from the start. This is just playing out as it's going to play out. Like there's more things to focus on here. Interesting here, Moiraine says, like, don't worry about Lanfear, because they speak again of the story of Birgitte informing then sort of how the information can come through to Moiraine now, because Nynaeve can't really say, but she can give a little bit of information. But okay, they're planning and plotting. Moiraine is like straight up like Lanfear is taken care of. Like it's actually slipping but not for the others. And I think that's pretty much where that chapter left off. It's yeah.
So they did learn some stuff in dreams.
She did learn a little bit.
Some important stuff.
I think the most important takeaway there is that when Egwene leaves, she's like, oh, wait, she spoke to me as an equal. Like that to me, blah, blah, blah. Something happened in that chapter. Moiraine now sees Egwene as an equal. And that must piss Nynaeve off horribly.
and Egwene took charge over Nynaeve as well. So she had 2 interactions with people who have previously been authority figures over her, but she is dealing with them on a much more level playing field. In Nynaeve's case, actually in a position of authority.
Yeah.
She's better at the stuff in the dream world. She's conjuring stuff that Nynaeve can't cure. She's calling Nynaeve up about her behavior and her lying. And then she's threatening her with a drink that Nynaeve used to threaten her with, right? So she's like well over her. And like you said, when she leaves Moiraine's tent, she realizes that, Moiraine treated her the whole time as an equal. Moiraine even smiles at one point in this conversation. You don't see Moiraine smiling. You don't see any emotion from Moiraine. So, cool one. Moraine's words about Landfear are, with luck, we will not have to worry about Landfear. So,
I have a plan for her.
She knows her fate.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's also what's driving her to sort of soften towards Egwene a little bit and show a bit more emotion and stuff, like the end is nigh.
Probably. Yeah.
Oh, probably. Yeah. I mean, she's trying just to do her best in this last bit of time that she's got left. She can't force anything because forcing is not getting her further. So it's a tough one.
Joe, did you have anything else you want to add?
Just that Avienda is pissed that she can't get some sleep. It's like, it's fine that he wants to stay awake, but he's going to realize that other people might want to get some sleep. Son of a bitch. I like how when Egwene approaches the tent, again, just maidens appear out of nowhere, and one of them
they just
is
materialize.
Yes. Like, she may be dressed like a wise one. She's still got those skills, man.
Oh, yes. Very much so. I had a bit of a laugh at, after Swan's study, the place that Nynaeve felt the most familiar with is not her own room, it's Sheriam's study. They mention her
Spend
many
some
visits.
time there.
Yep.
And I mean, she was accepted from day one, right? And they even say that it would take a lot for an accepted to go to Sheriam's study, and yet she's had many visits.
Well, look,
Yeah.
we've just been talking about Nynaeve's behavior recently. It's very believable.
Well, one thing that we can really take out of this chapter is that the Wise One's teachings as a whole is changing Egwene.
Oh, yeah.
Not just in ability but the way that she's treating people of power, the way that she has become a much more powerful or authoritative figure.
Yes.
It's she's
absolutely
hanging out with Aes Sedai, Lan, and Wise Ones. So
and picking up some skills. Yeah, for sure.
Indeed. Like, I mean, what's this? I don't know. I was reading something I think it was on Twitter. Somebody posted it. By changing for the TV show, by making the assumption that, spoilers if you haven't seen the TV show, making us think in the TV show that Egwene could be the Dragon Reborn, which is why she has to leave the Two Rivers. It takes away her agency there, that she was the only one in the books that left the Two Rivers because she wanted to. Like, she has always been different to everyone else, that she has got this drive in her to be more than what she is and do more than what she can if she stays in the Two Rivers. And this is like the serious beginning of her arc now, where we can see like this Wise One training really sets her up for the future. And she wouldn't be there if she hadn't just grabbed Bella right in the beginning and said, fuck it, I'm coming with you guys. This was where it all started.
She had packed provisions and clothes and stuff. She was prepared. They were busy sneaking out of town, and she just snuck up on them. She's like, I know what you're doing. I'm coming.
Yeah, exactly.
She was prepared.
She might have had that stashed away for years, just waiting for this chance to get out of town.
Fucking Elida, dreaming herself into Tel'aran'rhiod with a 6-stripe stole.
What a bitch.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well documented.
Her. Let's not spend any time on this woman.
I had a note here that Nynaeve, like from the author's point of view and in the eyes of the reader, further discredited in that section where she admits freely that she only listened to the Yellows because none of the other Ajahs ever had anything useful to say. That's such a naive, narrow, short-sighted way of looking at the Ajahs. They only listened to the Yellows. They were the only ones that had anything of value to teach because they were teaching healing. Bashir and all his men missing. Wonder how long it's going to be before we see them. I always liked old Davram Bashir.
Yeah, well, he's on the move, and he's been on the move for a while. We've been hearing rumors about him missing. for some time, since the last book, I think. So let's look at the map. He should be approaching the Caroline Grass at this point, passing the Black Hills.
Where do they set up? In like Braham Wood or something they set up, I think.
Oh, dude.
I can't remember.
Don't.
Yeah, I was just interested to see, like, oh, okay, cool. Even there's some more crumbs about Davram. He should be showing up sometime soon. In that whole like power dynamic between Nynaeve and Elayne, Nynaeve thinks less than 2 years ago, Nynaeve had switched Egwene's bottom. Like she'd given her a physical hiding, and now she's being bossed around by her. Nynaeve even thinks that she can change the dynamic back to how it used to be. No. This is a Villy's toothpaste analogy. Once the toothpaste has come out of the tube, you're not putting it back.
Yeah.
There's mention here that Rand is still training with Lan every day.
Mm-hmm.
Rad.
Very rad.
And that he speaks to Matt fairly often as well. Also rad.
Yeah, when Matt's not busy karfoofeling with Maiden, he gets a little word in there. Because she comes out of the perspective that she wished she had other friends, that he didn't have to hang out with that Gleeman all the time. Obviously not knowing that he's learning from the Gleeman. Yeah. But then runs through, but he still has the clan chiefs, and he still has Lan, and he still has this, and he still has the Mad. Like, okay, cool. Maybe he does have friends.
He's got a lot.
Yeah. I mean, he seems to be doing okay for a crazy madman.
He moves in some pretty powerful circles.
Yeah.
50 maidens around him all the time. It's people.
Egwene has a dream about Rand sitting in someone's chair and her being extremely pissed off about it.
Yeah. Please give me an answer.
Elayne's?
Some throne he's taking.
Elayne's chair?
Doesn't Rand proclaim himself king of Camelin or something like that, but only so that he can give the throne back to Elayne. But Elayne gets pissed off because she doesn't want to be given it. She wants to earn it. Something along those lines.
That's right. Thank you, Moritz. 100% agree with you. That is exactly what it is.
I'm guessing here.
No, you're right.
All I could put together. Then another cool dream about Tom reaching into a fire and pulling out that little gem that Moiraine wears on her forehead.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously symbolizing him saving Moiraine.
Well, putting himself in danger to save Moiraine. Yes.
Cool. But his hand comes out like all bloody and like all mangled or something.
Does it?
All right.
Okay. What else? When Egwene talks about Swan being like something has happened to Swan, she could be dead. She could even be stilled. Like stilling seems worse than death in Egwene's sort of like order of magnitude. Hectic. Here we also get a definitive sort of, well, not definitive, but a nice succinct encapsulation of what Moraine's intention for Rand is. Moiraine wants Rand to roam free, to learn, and to influence the world. She wants this extremely powerful Ta'veren to be free in the world, to influence events, and she wants him to learn so that he can be prepared at the final battle. She does not want him to be in the tower, shut away, and then just thrown to the lions.
The realization there is as well, if Lyda is at the throne, or as the Amyrlin, that's exactly what she'll do. She'll stick him in a box. Literally.
She does do that.
She does.
Yes. Literally, yeah. Like, you see, we love these books and we love everything, but some of these motivations are just so flimsy, and these plans, like Elyda's the Amyrlin Seat, and she really, do you think that's a good plan? And you're going to just capture this untrained Dragon Reborn and just throw him at the Dark One and everything will be okay?
Have you looked at our real world politicians and how they can be diametrically opposed on things that you would think is the most obvious thing in the world?
Okay, you have a point. Yeah, but I mean, I read fantasy to escape this bullshit of reality. But no, it just follows me in the books.
Yeah. Don't worry, Joe. Spoiler alert, Villy. In this one, the good guys win. Okay, that's all the notes I had for this chapter.
All right.
You ready to move on? Joe, are you psyched?
Yeah, a lot of POVs from Nynaeve now, so no, not quite that stoked, but let's go.
Take a big sip from your energy drink and walk us through chapter 16 called An Unexpected Offer.
Yeah, my pint's finished. But anyway, here we go.
Oh.
We're back with Nynaeve. Her point of view. She is waking up in the morning. They're still in the inn in Cinder. And she reviews the numerous bad dreams that she's had after leaving Egwene in Tel'aran'rhiod. Some of them she's dreamt that either Elayne or Moghedien is the Amyrlin Seat. I don't know which one's worse. Probably Moghedien, but I'll put them up there. One is the truth, though. And then one where she saw Rand collared like a dog lying next to the Amyrlin's table as she sits in her chair. It was like, whoa, that's crazy.
It's Nynaeve a dreamer now.
That's what I'm wondering there. That's pretty on the nose,
No.
Or maybe she just
It
expects
is.
that'll happen.
That doesn't happen,
Well, like
No,
that's
but it's
Elayne's intention,
Mm.
basically.
I guess.
Yeah. So maybe just everyone assumes that Elayne's a crazy bitch and that's what she wants. So you don't have to be a dreamer to figure that one out.
I think
Anyway.
the Reds in general, I think their attitude towards the Dragon Reborn is
Is exactly that.
well known.
Yes. She's still got the scratches from. I've written Egwene's creations, but I'm going to refer to them now as zombie rapists, due to Villy's description of them.
Oh, that grates on the ear, hey?
Like,
I'm sorry.
when that scene happened, I was like, "Holy shit! This is pretty straight up horror, man!" Like that's a crazy thing for Egwene to do to Nynaeve. I think that may have been a bit too far. Like these monsters rising out and ripping her dress off her and just clawing her, so she wakes up the next day with claw marks in her throat and on her neck. Like,
Hey, man.
holy shit, Egwene!
You're talking about the woman that whipped her on the buttocks with a switch just not 2 years ago.
Yeah, those two things are definitely equal. Yeah,
Switch does not equal zombie rapists.
no,
Well,
Jesus.
some people hold on to resentments, I guess.
Clearly.
Also, Egwene's only, what, 18, 19?
Yeah. So yeah, we'll leave that behind. So Nynaeve and Elayne are now, after much back and forth, useless back and forth, in agreement they should head to Tyr. The back and forth disagreement is how they should head to Tyr, basically. This is Nynaeve being just unbearable because she doesn't want to get on a ship. Obviously, going on a ship and a boat down the river and then heading over to Tyr is the best and fastest way to do it, but because she doesn't like ships, she's fighting it. So anyway, at the end, she agrees to do it. Anyway, so this entire thing was pointless. Because now the original plan, as you might remember, is that they're heading to Tar Valon. Now, that, of course, learning that Elayne is in charge, that plan has now drastically changed. Instead of going north, we're heading south, as far away as we can get. I'm wondering why Tyr, though.
Because Aes Sedai aren't welcome in Tyr.
But they're channelers.
Exactly.
Yeah,
why
you go? You go where you can go hide.
Anyway,
Maybe. That's a good question.
And also, if you know dangers
Good theory.
in front of you, you turn around and you run the opposite direction.
but also remember
They're also
that
known there.
Rand is the king of Tyr now, so he's in charge. They know about Aes Sedai. That'd be the safest, closest place. I
That's
think.
probably the best reason. It's like, not Nynaeve,
They were
Elayne
just
just
there.
saying like,
That's-
I want to go where Rand was because
they're
he's
known
going to
there,
come get his sword.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
that's a good theory, Vil, because I've got 2 notes for this whole chapter, and that's one of them, Joe. Why the fuck Tyr?
Yeah. Okay. But
okay,
that makes
that
sense.
makes sense.
Just if the three of us just thinking about it for 20
This fine
seconds.
weather in Tyr this time of year. This fine weather.
They're going for the food and those funny little slippers that are raised to walk over the mud. They're missing those.
It's prawn season at the
prawn
fingers.
season. Yeah. They're going for all you can eat prawns.
Prawn festival coming up.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, anyway, that's where they're going. So of course it's breakfast time. So they head down to the common room to eat some breakfast, surrounded by white cloaks. And they seem pretty chill about it. They're pretty happy to do it. That shows some guts, I gotta tell you. Anyway, they're seated by a little table by the window, and someone approaches them, and guess who it is? Our good old buddy Galad, or as some pronounce him, Galad, who is now a white cloak. Now, obviously, we knew this was coming, but here he is. This is the last time we saw him was in the tower when Matt kicked his butt in book 4, was it? Beginning of book 4. So yeah, after the whole tower split and the fighting... Was it book 3? The Dragon Reborn? Yeah. That's right.
No.
No?
Yes.
Stop confusing
When
me.
Rand
buds.
runs away from the Mountains of Mist, Matt's already sent to the tower with Varen and the girls. And he's healed in book 3.
Okay, yeah, book 4 was the
starts in
whole...
Tyr.
They start in Tyr, that's right. So book 3, so that's the last time
We
we
haven't
saw
seen
him.
Galad since book 3. Yeah.
Okay, he's back, and he's a white cloak. It seems that their disguises didn't work. What a surprise. Because her brother, of course, notices who she is, even with her blackened hair. Nynaeve becomes besotted immediately.
You can recognize your sister when she colors her hair. My sister has
never had a sister.
many
I'll
different hair colors, and every time she walked in, I didn't go like, oh, "Who are you?" I'm like, "Hey, you changed your hair."
Excuse me, have you seen my sister?
I suppose, of course, he would recognize her. That seems to be working for the rest of the people. I'm just carrying on about this disguises thing.
For the strangers that don't know them.
Yeah, for the strangers that have never seen them, her black hair is totally working. For her brother, not so much. But then again, let's give her some credit. She was not expecting to find her brother in this white cloak town, dressed as a white cloak. And he's already, a fucking officer as well. So anyway, there he is, old Galad. Like I said, Nynaeve is immediately besotted by him. She's got such doe eyes for him instantaneously. She doesn't even realize at first that he's dressed as a white cloak. She doesn't even notice that. It's only when Elayne says like, "And now you're a white cloak," that Nynaeve goes, "What the fuck? Whoa, yeah." Yeah, so yeah.
So here's more of that discrediting of Nynaeve in our eyes, right? Like she's being broken down.
Exactly. I suppose we have to break her down before we can build her up, kind of a thing. So yeah, basically, we get it, RJ. He's hot. You've got to think for this dude. So at first, yeah. So like I said, he's been promoted to an officer. Eamon Valder did it himself because he realized that, look, you've trained at the tower. Just not really a reason for a white cloak to be promoted. But, you come from Camelin, you're the Prince of Camelin and all, you've been trained and la 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 la. You should not be, mucking around with the recently enlisted people. You are now an officer. I don't know what rank he's got, but he's got some knots on his shoulder, and there he is. Elaine's like, immediately, does mom know? And he's all nervous. Doesn't matter who you are, what level of white cloak you are. Does your mom know? That question freaks him out. And he's like, well, I haven't really found the time to send a letter, blah, 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 blah. But then again, his mother doesn't know much at this stage. We get to that in later chapters. But of course, she's under the control of old Lord Gaebril. So he immediately wants to know as well, is Egwene with them? And apparently, because he says Gawain is also worried about her. So I thought at this time, as of course, like, we always look back on these books, having finished them, having all the knowledge. We forget these tiny details. Like it was always Elayne, and Egwene, I can't speak today. Gawain and Egwene. I'm putting everybody's names together. That with a couple, but apparently Galad also has feelings for her. So this is new to me, and Nynaeve points that out. She says, "Oh yeah," she notices because he says like Gawain was asking about her too, and she takes note of that too. She's like, "Oh, so both of you have got the feels for old Egwene."
At the tower, Gawain holds back from saying anything to Egwene about liking her because Galad also does, and Gawain doesn't want to step on Galad's toes.
Yeah, but I didn't think much of that. Like I thought, they were surrounded by, and they had some young girls there, and he liked her too. But I didn't think it was something he carried with himself for 2 books, like this affection for her. But anyway, he does. So,
except now he wants to set her on fire because she's a white lady.
Chop off her hands and set her on fire.
I love you so much, I'm gonna burn you.
Unless, of course, she weighs the same as a duck, then she's fine. So he tells her what happened in the tower, that, Swan has been just deposed and stilled, which is news to them. They don't know exactly what happened because of their World of Dreams jaunt. They know that, of course, Swan is out and Elayne is in, but they don't know the details, and this is where they get the whole thing, which is, of course, shocking to them. Like, no, she's not dead. That's, that would have been okay. Still, oh my God. So anyway, they find out about that. And he's like, listen, I don't know what that woman got you involved in her plots and how deep you are, but I'm going to take you back to Camelin where you'll be safe from all these, White Tower plots and everything. So Elayne is like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. You're probably right, but let me think about it. And Nynaeve is like, what is this woman blathering on about? Good idea. We have a plan, woman. This is not it. But of course, she's just trying to buy some time. And then they are interrupted by a soldier called Trom. An officer named Trom, who is a big buddy of Galad's. I had a look at this guy's resume, so to speak, and he does pop up again later on in the story, and he seems to be, as far as White Cloaks go, he's kind of like on the same level as Galad. He's a White Cloak dick, but he's actually not a bad White Cloak, in relatively speaking.
I mean, he seems good-natured here, right?
Yeah.
You don't read about White Cloaks like cracking jokes and, know, making light and, he's jovial.
Yeah.
Which is not something you imagine any White Cloak ever being. Not even Galad. It's all Child Byar and fucking Bornold and,
Yeah. Exactly.
100-man Farron.
Farron. Yeah. But anyway, later in the story, Galad gets captured by like the High Inquisitor or something, or whatever the guy's name is from the Shepherds of the Crook, those dudes, the questioners, and beaten and tortured. And then Trom saves him, rescues him from them, and it helps him escape and whatnot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he is, he's a man you can trust if you are wearing a white cloak yourself. Otherwise, not so much. But anyway, in the end, he dies. Spoilers. Doesn't really matter. Yeah. He here plays a role, but he's not, very, very important. So as soon as Galad leaves the inn with Trom, because Trom's like, Galad's like, all right, no, we can't flirt with these girls. They've told me as much. They're not interested. Let's just leave them alone. And he takes him outside. So immediately Elayne goes like, all right, we got to get the fuck out of here. We cannot trust that guy. I know he's my brother, but he will always do the right thing. And he can just as easily take us back to Camelin, as he said he would, or turn us in to the White Cloaks, which is now what he is. We're, Channeling and Aes Sedai are illegal here in Amyrlin. We could just as easily end up killed and stilled or had our head chopped off or whatever. Not stilled, but killed. So they go upstairs to start planning their very prompt escape. When Tom and Julian arrive, she explains what's happening to them and accidentally also lets Tom know that she remembers him from when they were a child. So this whole thing comes out as well that she remembers. Apparently she's known since Chanchico as well. So also they're looking out the window at this. They're all up in the room now making plans to get to escape, and they see Galad is sitting across the road from them. He's sitting on a barrel across the road watching the inn, because he also, as he's left, went, that girl is totally going to try and escape now, so I'll just keep an eye on the place. I know my sister well enough, even if she believes me or not. He knows. He's keeping an eye on things. So anyway, they're making up a plan. They can't obviously go out the front, and they can't take the carriage out the back because apparently it's not going to fit. So these are all plot points to make them do different things. So they decide they're going to sneak out the back on foot. Because obviously Galad is there in the front watching them. So they're asking Tom and Julian about like what's happening, because they've been out, of course, inspecting and chatting to people. And Tom's found out that the king, Amyrlin, or whatever his name is laying claim to a strip of land to the east on the border of Altara. That's it. Because and he says, and Tom even mentions the towns, and one of the towns is Saladar. And I'm like, come on, Nynaeve, because if you remember, we didn't ever talk about it, but in Nynaeve's dream, when she was looking through those notes, she did actually see something about that, wasn't it? Or did I imagine? She
did, but she can't recall before it disappears, and she can't remember the name of the town. And I think Egwene and Elayne are both constantly pushing her, like, think, Nynaeve, think, try. And she's like, just give me time, I'll get there. And she even says, when Tom mentions the names, something Tom said sort of struck, like pulled at her memory a little bit, but she couldn't quite get it.
Exactly. So I was thinking now, like,
which is not how memory works, I feel like.
Yeah, that's not how my memory works. She had
heard the name, she read it, she's trying to think of it, and then she hears it, she would have gone, oh yes, that one.
Oh, that's what I'm trying to remember, but apparently not. Look, she's got a mental blocker on many things, so this is another one of those things. So apparently, this is interesting to me, I'm mentioning it, because apparently Pedro Nile, of course, is behind all of this. The king of Altara, of Amyrlin, sorry, is not going to be the one making the plays. So he's trying to, it's kind of like a Lex Luthor plan, trying to buy up all the land along the water, along the river Eldar, so that he can control that river on both banks and then he will have be able to move freely down to Ibudar and then have access to the coast and everything. It's quite a nice little strategic plan. I like it.
He's one of the great captains.
Yeah, he is indeed. Julian has only found out something about the prophet. He says, like, I normally hang out with all the criminals, and in this town, there's very few criminals. You don't want to be a criminal around these white cloaks. So he did find out that the prophet, he comes, brothers and sisters. So apparently, we're going to see a battle at some point, I imagine, in the future, because the old prophet is on his way down to Amyrlin. I mean, he's coming to look for shit. So they finally decide to sneak out of the inn and the town itself and eventually meet up with Valen Luca is the plan. So we're going to be seeing a lot of Valen in the future, because they figured, like, hey, that menagerie that we passed, that'd be a great place to hide. Why don't we go hook up with him again? We can sneak away amongst other people and we'll never be found. So they send Tom and Julian to go buy supplies, because they're going to have to leave everything behind. They're going to have to leave their carriage behind, their horses and all their dresses and their big chests and trunks. Because if you remember in the last episode, those poor guys had to carry up all of those things. They're leaving all that shit behind. Thanks for carrying it up to the room, dudes. We don't need it anymore.
Nynaeve's unpacking it, and it's like frying pans and stuff. It's like the most arbitrary stuff that she just couldn't do away with. You just shake your head at her and go, fucking
there's a line there.
All that bullshit up the stairs.
There's a line there that Elaine's looking at it going, she really did keep everything. Like, oh my God. So anyway, doesn't matter. Tom will buy another frying pan. Just leave the frying pan. And he tells them, like, look, do not come back to the inn. We'll meet you on the road. Let's split up. We'll all go on foot. So those men are out. So the ladies start packing and unpacking and shoveling things and throwing out frying pans. And that's where Nynaeve, tries to get some more information about what's this whole Tom scenario that you're talking about. And she admits that Tom was the court bard, that she remembers that when she was little, Tom was the court bard in Camelin, and as well as her mother's lover. And now, to some degree, Elaine's behavior makes sense in a Freudian kind of way. In this part, we realize now that, Elayne is trying to live up to the standard her mother has set, and doing so by trying to take her mother's lover, sort of, but not kind of a thing, like trying to be her mother's
sounds
equal.
Wrong. All of it sounds wrong.
Look, I'm trying to give
there's
it...
no way of sugarcoating. Just
no.
Just stop it, Jody. Just carry on.
It not was me.
Wrong.
It's Freud. Listen. All right. So anyway, this is what she's trying to do. So that kind of like, this is the book, not me, the book trying to explain Elaine's behavior towards Tom. Anyway, it makes sense to Nynaeve, because she says, oh, she's seen this kind of shit before as a wisdom in the towns, women behaving really, really weirdly over mothers and sons and daughters and all kinds of crack. So she's been there, she's seen that, she's done it. Anyway, they pack up a few things and they get all ready to sneak out, and that's where the chapter ends, basically. Surprise.
Look, not a lot to dive in there. Like I said, I only had 2 notes, and one of them was why Tyr. We've answered that definitively. I think very, very happy with Philly's theory. My only other note was that Elayne really dislikes Galad. He's not my brother. And I also love how, like, forcibly she has to tell Nynaeve, no, Nynaeve, you do not understand. He is absolutely going to dob us in. You cannot trust him. He's going to do what he imagines is the right thing, no matter who gets hurt. So we have to get out, not later, right now. Pronto. And, I like the sense of urgency that they actually employ here. Like, I mean, they basically, Galad walks out, they leave the table, and then it's like, fuck, all systems go. Getting the hell out of Dodge.
Leave your bacon and eggs. We're going. It's in the road. Exactly.
But if
Cancel
you don't have anything
coffee.
to add, we might as well forge straight on.
Go straight on.
It leads us straight into chapter 17, which is called Heading West. Why don't you keep this train rolling, Joseph?
Yes, thank you for keeping me on this train. Really appreciate it. I love spending time with
It's
Moody
my pleasure.
Nynaeve. Yeah, thank you. But these are 2 short chapters to our listeners who are wondering, why Jody again? We're sick of hearing from him. But no, he's still here. Because these are 2 short chapters, we're just going to keep them together. And it's the same people doing the same shit. Because now they're going to go. Yeah. All right. So they make up some excuses. They're trying to, set up their alibis. Elayne pretends to be a lady all worn out from the heat and whatnot. And she's passed out on the bed. So they get one of the servants to come and give them a couple of bonnets. The perfect disguises. Again, with the disguises. These ones I actually think are pretty good because you can't see their faces at all. This is the one I think that Swan was wearing, wasn't she? Or was she just wearing a hood?
Yeah, and Liandrin later in this stretch as well.
So apparently, being a very religious country, it does make sense that women tend to wear things that cover them from head to toe. It does.
That's true. That's something I hadn't considered.
So they
Is
wear
it
these
like
deep
a
bonnets.
bonnet, like these pilgrim
Yeah.
stuff.
The Amish or whatever. They get like an Amish vibe. Those kind of things. You know. So a deep bonnet, you can't really see their faces. And yeah, that's their perfect disguise. And it actually is a very good disguise. This is the first one I approve of. So as soon as that maid leaves, Elayne jumps up and they get rid of their fancy clothes. They don their bonnets, gather up all their belongings, the 2 or 3 dresses they're keeping, and they just leave everything else. They leave by the back stairs, head down through the back gate, and they walk, I think it's like 5 miles, several miles, before Tom and Julian catch up to them with a brand new wagon. Well, new to them, a very old-looking Tinker-style wagon, and their horses. And immediately, like, we told you guys not to go back for the horses, but apparently they took them when they first left on some makeup errand. They were also having their own little alibi. No, our lady wants fresh berries picked.
Strawberries.
Yes. Picked from the fields. So, like, a typical thing that some crazy old or some crazy young noble lady would want. So that's
the locals would just roll their eyes and go, oh yeah, of course.
That sounds about right. Yeah. In this heat, sending you out to go pick berries that obviously don't exist. So anyway, that's how they got the horses out. I don't know where the hell they got the wagon from. But anyway, they got a wagon. So I think that's one of the things, like when they told Tom to buy supplies, I doubt a new wagon was on the list, but he took one anyway, and a new frying pan. He's got that as well. He learns as well. He tells them that he's learned throughout his speaking to all the people that Pedro Nile seems to be trying to unite the nations against Rand. Like, he's been listening, and too many people are saying too many similar things. Like, they're not that buying up the land or claiming the land along the river and trying to unite people against Rand and trying to unite the nations. He's been making maneuvers and telling them, like, I like the line is like, forget the signs, forget Kalandor. Like, what do you mean forget Kalandor? It's like a 3,000-year-old prophecy that the whole world is balanced on. And he's like, no, don't worry about that. I'll be the one to save you. Forget this guy with Kalandor. So anyway, we'll just go along with that. And at this point as well, you can see Nynaeve developing a newfound respect for Tom. She's like, we've spoken about this in the past. Like, Morris, you've been saying, like, she only knows him as like this juggler that came to town, you know. But now now she knows, of course, that he was the lover of Morgase. He was the court bard, that he knows stuff, and he's been in the game of houses for a long time now. So she's like, all right, he's not just this guy, and she's starting to respect him. And it's about bloody time that she's joined the rest of us. So anyway, they successfully avoid Galad, and they reach the menagerie, where they find old Valan Luca, who is not happy to see them. You've come crawling back like a bird on its belly, he says to them, in my brain.
Actually, the Zap Brannigan analogy is pretty apt. So I'm going to start applying that voice to Valan.
I know they say he's wearing a red silk coat, but I imagine it to be made out of velour.
Velour.
Yes. The velour fog.
So he's still mad at Nynaeve for calling him a beggar and throwing a coin. He threw that coin she gave him, remember? He threw it after her when she left. And he is not stoked to see them. And he believes that they're thieves. Like, you guys are not ladies and maids. You guys are up to no good. There's probably white cloaks and armies after you and stuff. And they're like, no, listen. And she gives them this whole story that she's Elayne, that she's running away from home for some arranged marriage. She doesn't want to, and that her brother is looking for her, which is kind of true. Her brother is looking for her. So that's a half truth, at least. She's testing out her Aes Sedai styles. He insists, though, Luca, this is, that, look, you can come with us, but you gotta, pay your way. You've got to help us and become performers to blend in and stuff, so that you don't look out of place while we travel around. And it makes, make it more difficult for someone to find you if they believe that you're part of this menagerie. So Tom, of course, is like, hey, you're singing my song here. I'm just the guy for you. And he starts juggling, and Valen's like, yeah, whatever, you're a juggler. But his juggling becomes super good, apparently. So Valen's like, all right, cool. You look like you know what you can do. You can join. Elayne notices that there's a high rope belonging to the previous high rope specialist Cedrin, who had died apparently
falling
in the
off
fall
the high
just
rope
mere hours before they had arrived.
They just buried him.
His body's still warm. They haven't even taken down his high rope. So Elaine's like, hey, no, I can walk on a high rope. And everybody's like, no. All the guys that she's with, of course, like, don't do it. Of course, she uses the one power to make it look as if she's walking on this high rope. She just makes an invisible floor for her to walk up there. She's like, come, Julian, you're with me. And Julian's just like, no, please, God, don't involve me in this.
He's so scared.
So terrified. So she walks around like up and down on this rope as if she's doing nothing dangerous, which she is. Cartwheeling, like making it look like it's no thing. It's no big thing. And Julian is just fucking terrified. When they finish, Luke is like, wow, I really like that. You know, especially this dynamic that you have where you don't seem to care and Julian pretends to be frightened to death. It's like, Julian ain't pretending, dude. So anyway, everyone's got their roles except Nynaeve. Nynaeve just says basically her role is to be keeper of the monies. Now, fuck off, basically. Yeah. So what they're doing is they're telling him, like, look, we're going to be your patrons. That's the plan. I forgot to mention that. Like, we're just not going to join you. We're going to be your patrons. Like, you having a hard time financially. We've got lots of money. You protect us, and we will fund your journey as you go along, and we'll pretend to be some of the performers at the same time. So he's like, all right, good. Some people can do stuff. You've got the money. It's a deal. We also meet a couple of people, some of the performers that we will be seeing a lot of in the future. We meet old Petra the strongman. Remember him? I remember him.
I do.
We meet Clarine, that's his wife, and the dog trainer as well. So she's important. When I read her name, I was like, yes, Clarine. And we also meet Eludra.
Reese.
Yes, I know. And does she have some fava beans and a nice Chianti? So Eludra's there too. You know, forget about Clarine. Eludra, that's where she is. Now, we know that she's there. Of course, we've read further on. And when old Matt meets up with them later on, he's like, hey, I know you too. We meet the acrobats, the brothers Chivana, who apparently don't look like brothers at all. One of them is actually sea folk, I think. And then we also meet Littell, the bear lady. We've mentioned her earlier. She's not very friendly. Everyone greets them as everyone's like, hey, welcome to the troop, except Latrine, we'll call her. Littell, the bear lady, she's just not stoked that they're there. I assume it's jealousy now that you've mentioned that she marries Luca.
Yes, well, I assume it is as well.
And he's just making moves on all the girls, and there's two new pretty girls in camp, and she's like, no, this dude's mine. This is my man.
She and Nynaeve, I think, have a proper falling out, and at one point someone else is having a fight with Nynaeve, and Littell hands her a stick with which to hit Nynaeve. It's like, not a fan.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. We get it.
Oh, fuck, that's funny.
Look, the feeling is evident from the first moment that they step foot in the place. All right. So the performers gather around. Everybody's like, hey, welcome. Let's get ready to depart. Everyone's happy now. They have their funds. They have a deal, and they're going to get going. But Nynaeve notices the boar horse trainer around there, standing at the back. I want to pronounce her name as Sarandon, as in Susan Sarandon. It could be Seradin if you want, but I'm going to go with Sarandon, the boar horse trainer.
Cool.
Nynaeve recognizes the animals from Felme. So she's like, those are Sean-Chan animals. I've heard the story now from Luca that they are from Shara, blah, blah, blah. I don't buy that shit. And after the first couple of words speaking to Sarandon, she is clearly Sean-Chan. Since no one else seems to care about accents, I mean, they've been there.
What gave it away? The thick Texan accent.
Probably. Yeah, the accent gave it away instantaneously. And so they're kind of like nonchalantly, Nynaeve like saunters up to it. She's like, hey, these are very cool animals. What are they called, really? They're called Seredit. So Nynaeve's like, hey, so are there many of these Seredit in Sean-Chan? Just straight up. And old Seredit is like, what? Sean-Chan? What's a Sean-Chan? I don't know what you guys are talking about. He's like, no. We were there. We were in Felme. We've heard your people speak before. We've seen these animals. We know what they are. Elayne joins up at this point, and they start probing a lot more to find out her history and, make sure that she's not a Suldam. And it's like, no, I was tested as a kid, and I can't channel. So I was very happy to become a trainer of these Seredits. Cerridon, at this point, through the dynamic, realizes that Elayne is a high lady and immediately goes and prostrates herself on the ground in front of her. Yes. I'm like, dude, get up. People could see this, She's like, oh, you must be one of the blood of this land. And before they could get her to stand up, it is important to note that Luca and Latrell see this. They are the only people that see what's happening there from a distance. They're like, whoa, what's going on here? What's all this then? So basically, Elayne tells her, like, look, you don't need to do that. Get up off the floor, please. And they agree to, all right, listen, we want to know some more about your guys' lands, and you need to know something about us. So let's become, we'll just do a little bit exchange of information on each other's lands and cultures, and I think we can be friends. And basically, that is how the chapter ends.
Yeah, it says a lot that Nynaeve is willing to befriend a Seanchan.
Second time now.
Egwene has made an impact, eh?
She absolutely has. And now suddenly they know how to recognize an accent when they met Moghedien and nothing.
No. Let's not delve into that, please.
Look, maybe they sharpened their recognition of the accent while interacting with Egwene. I'll say this, and my Aussie friends and our Aussie listeners and Kiwi listeners for that matter should not hold this against me, but when I moved to Australia 15 years ago, I could not pick an Aussie and a Kiwi accent apart. Like I couldn't tell you the difference. And now it's clear as day. So there's something to be said for spending an extended period of time around someone to actually lock onto the accent.
I'll take that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Villy, I can see you exploding with boundless energy on the other side of this call.
Just you see how full of it. Do
you have anything you wanted to add about that chapter? I've got a handful of notes.
No, you can go crazy. I don't have much there. Valen Luca is on my radar now to suss out whether he is a scumbag or not. I'm not sure. And yeah.
He is a scumbag. He's definitely a scumbag.
But not a traitorous scumbag.
No, just a lecherous scumbag.
lecherous, loyal scumbag.
The loyal lecher. I was relieved to hear that Nynaeve actually did have a moment of feeling guilty or sorry for Tom and Julian having to carry the chests up the stairs as they're leaving the back of the inn. She actually thinks about it. It's like, I did make those older dudes carry Tom with his limp, carry the chests up here. I had a laugh at Nynaeve thinking that, so maybe Tom has actually dabbled in court intrigue. Lady, this is the grey fox you're talking about, okay? He killed King Galdrian, okay? He has done much more than dabble. But she admits to herself that she'll have to start paying more attention to what Tom says after she learns from Elayne that he was the court bard. And then my last note, apart from recognizing the accent all of a sudden, is that Nynaeve sort of dismisses the Seanchan as a distant danger.
Yeah.
Nope.
Not
that distant.
Everyone's making that
on
mistake.
your doorstep. Yeah.
It's not just her.
But yeah, that's it. Some good old-fashioned storytelling now in some of these chapters. Not a lot of larger world impacts. All right then, should we carry on?
Mm-hmm.
Go, Villy.
Well then, Villy, time to perk up, eat a spoonful of instant coffee because it's time for chapter 18, A Hound of Darkness. Or take a swig of your beer.
That'll do. Now, A Hound of Darkness, it's not a mastiff that we're talking about. But
Villy won't let it go, ever.
No, never. Liandrin. It's... Why must I read about her? Just not excited about it. Anyway,
because Moritz hates you when he distributes chapters.
Do you want Nynaeve bitching about being a lady's maid, or do you want to read about the intrigue of the Black Ajah and the Forsaken?
I don't want to read any of it.
None of those, please.
None of it. Anyway, Liandrin is in Amador. And she's on a horse in disguise, also with a bonnet. She's upset because her braids be taken out to try and fit in, but she doesn't really fit in. Now, Aes Sedai's are outlawed, we know, for that area. So she's lying a little bit low. The large wooden house that she arrives at is on a 10 feet tall stone foundation. It's some pretty big slabs that is legislated as building code that they've got to build their structures on. It seems excessive. I don't know. It's like these pedestals that they live on. But anyway, we spoke about last about the red tiled roofs and all of that. Now, Liandrin walks into this accommodation palace / pedestal that they're living in, and commands to the servant there that she'll take a bath soon. But the maid tells her that there's a visitor from Tar Valon, and Liandrin's like a little bit like, oh man, who in our network is now pulled in over here? And now the room that Liandrin enters, there's a lady, Amelia, there that's pleading for her husband. Please, my lady, you've got to save my husband. Now, in the room, there's 9 of the 10 Black Sisters. When she walks in, she sees the 10th one because they now reduced to 10 plus her 11. Am I right? There's 2 been taken out now. And the 11th person is Moghedien.
Wait, how many were there? There were 13 in
13
total,
in total in the beginning.
So Emiko and Joya, dead. Tamail from the Panarch's palace,
still there.
They didn't capture her. They left her.
No, they just left her. No,
Elayne and Egwene left her behind. So so she's still in this group.
No, Tamalia's still there. She's in the group there.
There's 10
she
of
was
them
also
Yeah.
With Liandrin 11, and the 11th person is Moghedien, who then very quickly takes control of Liandrin, blocking her off from touching the true source, and she's shielding her, and she starts like hurting her. Like, I don't know if she's squashing her, but Liandrin at this point is like, she's really shit scared. Like, she came in with quite a bit of attitude, and Moghedien just broke that down. One thing that Liandrin finds solace in, I suppose, is that Moghedien doesn't know who the head of the Black Ajah is. But Moghedien isn't phased at all at this stage because she's now found these girls. She reveals to Liandrin that she's been there all along. What was her name as
Gliders, that servant.
Can't remember now. What was that, Joe?
Glyden.
And
Gildan,
Liandrin
like
realizes like what she's done in terms of punishment to her, and she's like, "No, don't worry about that. The people still reported punishment to you, but it didn't really happen. In fact, I ate the desserts that you ate. That's how they treated me." So she had her way and her cover never blown. Now, this is a woman that knows how to do a disguise, I guess.
Yeah. Well, also, no one knows what she looks like. No one has ever seen her. So
Now, Liandrin thinks at this stage that she is an equal to Moghedien, but Moghedien sets her straight. Like, you are nothing. She tries to take her on in the power and immediately gets properly schooled by Moghedien, that this is, you think that you've got a little bit of power, you know nothing. Now, Moghedien also threatens Liandrin with a second lesson, saying like, some of you learn quick and some might need reminding that I'm large and in charge, and you all work for me now. And your purpose right now is to find the wilder Nynaeve. And that's one thing that Liandrin and Moghedien can agree on. It's like, okay, cool. That is, but she's got to be found and brought to her alive. So the Black Ajah's got some new direction. All 10 of them, 11 of them.
But I have to go figure out now how many there were in the room, because Joy and Amiko are the only two that I know for sure are dead. Even the one with the rod, the fluted black rod, I think is here.
It's also
Janine,
still there.
what was her name?
Janine.
Janine. There are 10 of them left. 11 if you include, 11 if you include, what's her face?
Liandrin. Okay, so Tamil did make it out of.
Yes.
No, she did.
She's the one.
Because
She's the one.
Specifically, the numbers
Moghedien.
was in there.
Yeah, I'm looking at
okay, that's right.
I'm looking at the notes on whatfandom.com right now.
Right.
Tamil is the one handing
so
a cup of tea to Moghedien when Liandrin walks in the room.
Okay, so it's only Joy and Amiko that are dead, killed by Slayer.
Killed by Slayer.
I don't even remember that.
In the Stone of Tyr, had their tongues pulled out and then killed in the cells that they were being held in because they were captured.
Ah, right.
I honest to God do not remember that.
Amiko and Nagoyan, Joya Bayer, the two had different stories about what the Black Ajah are going to do next.
Oh, those two that were being questioned by
Interrogated
Moiraine
by Moiraine and the
Nynaeve.
girls.
Oh, yes. Okay, that is true. No, I mean, of course it's true, but I mean, now I remember.
We didn't know it was Slayer. We know from a later chapter in a later book that it was Slayer. They just found dead with their tongues pulled out and stabbed to the door or something, nailed to the door.
Never speak again.
It's coming back to me now. All right.
So those are the only two dead ones, and the rest are still here in
Unfortunately.
Amador, of all places.
Yeah, how did that... I'm trying to see... How did they get there? If they don't
From
elaborate.
Tenchiko.
Well, everyone's there from Tenchiko.
Well, not in Amador, but in Amadisia. But
Yeah.
they went to the capital, and then the girls are traveling in the country towns, taking the scenic route.
So I suppose they all just traveled there. Anyway, I don't know why.
There could be a waygate. Who knows? Liandrin's traveled through the ways before.
Again, another
True.
why.
We don't know
Why
yet
would the
why.
Black Ajah be in Amador? Unless there is a dark friend that's harboring them. Where are they? Whose house are they in?
This merchant.
This merchant. So maybe it's
this
just...
merchant and his wife.
Yeah, okay. Maybe that's just like the closest place where there was a base for operations for them that they knew of. Seems an odd place for 11 Aes Sedai to go, you know.
Well, the rest of the Aes Sedai wouldn't necessarily go there. They'd be unlikely to go to Amador to go do anything. So, similar sort of thinking as what we applied to Tyr earlier.
I suppose.
Makes sense.
Liandrin and the Black Ajah sisters must at this point assume that the Tower sisters know who they are. They've already sent Nynaeve and Elayne to chase them down. Like their movements must be known now. They've been exposed, so they're probably going undercover. And where better to hide than in a place where other Aes Sedai would not come looking for them?
It is true. Everyone's thinking that.
Maybe
the Blue Ajah as well. Exactly. Yeah. So again, we have like that super dark friend social when Lanfear and Samael and who was the other one? Was it Moghedien? Ravin and
Grendel.
And Grendel, that's right. When they had their meeting, we got some inclination that they were making some plans. And the same thing happens here in this chapter because Moghedien blocks all their ears and then gives them orders one by one and they start leaving the room. Some of them are happy with their orders and others are fucking terrified with their orders. But we don't get to see what those orders are. I suppose we'll just have to...
Liandrin tries to say, we're taking our orders from the Black Ajah in the tower, so, just... And Moghedien's like, no, I control you now.
Yeah.
I'm taking charge. I'm the captain here.
Yeah, those days are over, ladies. Let's go.
You work for me now. Work you shall work hard.
I do have a note on this. I like that Liandrin tries to use her compulsion spell, which is confirmed is compulsion, but like the baby version. I suppose when you're learning compulsion, when you're 13, this is the one they teach you. Baby steps. Yeah, because then Moghedien's like, I see what you're doing there, but let me show you what this weave really looks like. and then uses full-on compulsion on her. So, yeah.
Pretty cool how Moghedien just dominates all 11 of these Black Ajah sisters and then was bested by just Nynaeve.
I never thought of that, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, not just in terms of raw strength, but like channeling, like dexterity, like how quickly she reacts to the weaves and like she quickly puts up things. Nynaeve and Moghedien faced each other face to face with no distractions and immediately went at each other, and Nynaeve matched her, and they sort of reached that stalemate when they were sort of pushing at each other.
That was something
so
I
Nynaeve-
noticed, was that Moghedien was quicker to the draw than
Yes.
all of the others. Yeah. So that is
I imagine Liandrin sort of like trying to, like, you can almost see the weaves come together into a single weave, and then or the threads coming together into a single weave, where Moghedien's is almost instantaneous. The weave is already made and she just places it on, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So she's much stronger and much faster as well. And yeah, that's true. Nynaeve is equal, even stronger, but just as fast with no training.
And still growing in strength.
Yeah, there's some love coming back from Nynaeve. We'll remember the good times. She's just in a slump. We all go through these moments of darkness.
We do. I always say this. It's becoming like my catchphrase, but I had a chuckle at Liandrin thinks about Swan, thinking Swan had escaped, true, but she was a useless rag now. Incorrect, Liandrin. Gross misinterpretation of Swan's effectiveness despite being stilled.
Moghedien over here is when she goes like, okay, we're going to find Nynaeve, because she was lost in Sienda. Like, she knows where she was or is.
Yes.
How? Probably Tel'aran'rhiod, I imagine. Yeah, okay.
She was hiding in a corner spying.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
She claims it's her arena. Lanfear thinks it's hers, but
I think, is it Birgitte or the Wolves? Someone else that is like a prominent user or occupant of the World of Dreams makes a comment about Lanfear claiming it for herself, but Moghedien actually being more powerful in there.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's Birgitte.
I think it's Birgitte.
Yeah. Lanfear's just entitled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Billy and I are both wrong. It's actually the Wolves.
Probably. A lot of insight into Liandrin. Obviously, being from her point of view, you learn a couple things, or maybe not learn, but like reaffirm a couple things. She's a total man hater, like just how she talks about that chef and his stare lingering on her for longer than she saw fit, and he claiming innocence, but she knows how men are. You know, like, okay, Liandrin, you fucking sexist. She goes, but she knew men's vile habits. I mean, we're pretty vile, but still, she has no right to think that.
I'm just wondering if she has like a traumatic backstory. This is tickling a memory of mine. Like, she was abused or something.
I wonder. Maybe that would be like a good sort of like character point for her to go in this direction. What I think you know about her is that she says it here, that she sought out the Black Ajah. She was a dark friend before going to the tower. What you also find out here is that she started channeling a year before she went to the tower. So she's a wilder, even though she hates Nynaeve for being a wilder. Such a just hypocrite.
Yeah, look,
awful human being.
Add a long list of horrible things to her already horrible character. None of these are surprises. She's a hypocrite, you say? Oh,
totally.
Yeah.
But she is ballsy and ambitious. I mean, she says here a couple of things like she wants to kill Nynaeve and Elayne, no matter what her orders. So she's willing to defy like Black Ajah orders coming down the chain and potentially, Forsaken orders. She's sharp enough to immediately recognize that Moghedien doesn't know who controls the Black Ajah.
That's true.
Because Moghedien says something flippantly like whoever's giving orders to blah, blah, something like that. So Liandrin said, so you don't know everything. Okay, cool. I'm going to file that away. She even contemplates capturing Moghedien and handing her over to the other Forsaken. I mean, ambitious. Maybe they'll make me one of the Forsaken. Yep, ambition, that tracks. You've got
Yeah.
all the character traits for being one, so you're in there. Also, notably, she keeps calling them Forsaken and not Chosen.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that. I just was reading like, I don't care if you call them chosen. They're still Forsaken to me.
So yeah, like interesting character, Liandrin. Like, I mean, obviously hateful, just reprehensible in every way. And I was right in my original, 16-year-old summary of her, and I hold that. But I am, I hate to use the word appreciate, but I am recognizing in her some traits that are, pretty effective.
Mm-hmm.
She's a well-written character. She's more fleshed out
Mm.
than most other Black Ajah. And I mean, even like
Yes.
one thing that I can definitely throw the TV show's way is like they even amped that up. Kate Fleetwood in the show is just phenomenal as this character. So yeah. I wonder if that's influencing our view on her now while rereading these books, because I still don't. I like when I read about Liandrin in the books, I don't picture Kate Fleetwood.
No,
me neither.
No. Like she hasn't taken over that like visual representation.
It's
but
horrible blob monster thing, zombie woman.
Kate Fleetwood has a more sort of like severe face, where Liandrin is described as like a doll-like face with a rosebud mouth, and that's why the two don't marry up for me. That's all I had for that one.
Me too.
Should we get on to the best chapter in this stretch?
Oh yeah, finally. I hope all the chapters after this are as good and better than this chapter coming up, because I'm done with this bullshit.
I feel like we've done some hard yards here. I feel like we should be rewarded with some fun stuff. But I fear.
Well, the very next chapter after
Luca...
this is Baden Fine, so
it's in this chapter.
Yeah.
Is it in this chapter?
POV, yeah.
Yes.
I don't think he gets his own chapter.
I don't know if you guys... Do you guys look back on the Val and Luca chapters with fondness or any kind of feeling? I remember not liking them.
Not really.
I don't have any
Can't really
feelings
say that
them.
I've got anything stored away for them.
I'm girding my loins.
It is commonly held belief amongst many of the fandom that this menagerie section of the books is pretty crap. Not many people like it. It's just,
well, I'm going to try to like it.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to pick it apart and find stuff to like. No doubt.
We will. Trust that. Okay, but let's get to a chapter that we do like.
Yes.
Okay, so a chapter that we do like is chapter 19, called Memories. Take it away, Joe.
Thank you very much, sir. We are now with Morgase. We mentioned her earlier, and she has been on a hell of a journey, this poor woman, but she is strong, and she is rad. So, Morgase is in her sitting room, in her compulsion days. D-A-Z-E. And probably days as well, I imagine. Several days. She's been years. She's been under compulsion for so long. She doesn't know whether she's coming or going. She's 24 hours under the spell. She's sitting in her sitting room, hence the name, reading her book, but she hasn't read anything for at least an hour, she realizes, when she's interrupted by Guardsmoon Lieutenant Martin Tel'aran'rhiod. And he stares at her cleavage because she's been dressing quite provocatively because of old Gaebril. He likes her like that, so she dresses like that for him. And then he tells her that there is a rebellion in the Two Rivers. Someone has raised the banners of Nynaeve. She thinks to herself, something is tickling her memory again. Something about the Two Rivers recently happened in my life. Like, yep, there was a dude, the Dragon Reborn. He was standing in front of you a year ago or so in your chambers. But anyway... So anyway, she is pissed off that somebody has dared rebel against the crown after everything that they haven't done for the Two Rivers. I mean, they really haven't been there in centuries, basically. So, but anyway, the fact remains that you cannot let open rebellion fester in your kingdom. This is true. You have to go and snuff that shit out before people get ideas, regardless of whether or not you've actually helped them or even recognized them as part of your kingdom at all for the last couple of decades. So he tells her, she asks him, hey, has Lord Gaebril been informed of this? And he's like, yes, we've already told him, which technically he should not have been told. But anyway, and apparently Gaebril just laughed and waved it aside as like a minor problem that he'll deal with it when he's got time. He's got other things to worry about. He even mentions that, that Two Rivers is really throwing up a lot of trouble. It's like, yeah, you have no idea. Just wait. Morgase is enraged. She is pissed off to hear this, and she's like, well, listen, this has got to be dealt with. I don't care what Gaebril says. I'm going to go confront him right now. So she barges out of the room and heads into the gardens, where she finds him surrounded by all the lords and ladies that opposed her during her succession to the throne. The worst of the worst. And he's all big buddies with them now. There are too many names here. Go read them in the books. I don't know if these people are even going to be relevant later on. Maybe not. But I didn't write down any of their names. But they don't even acknowledge her arrival. They smirk openly at her. They laugh openly at her. She's just a joke now. And she demands to talk to Gaebril about what's happening in the Two Rivers. And she's like, you will. And he's like, no, not right now. And she's like, not right now, my dear. He calls her my dear, not my queen or anything. And that just really, now she's in a rage. She's got her senses back now. The compulsion weaves are wearing off. And she's like, no, like, you will follow me now inside there and we will discuss it. And the rest of these people will fuck right off out of my kingdom at this very moment. This pisses him off, of course. He jumps up to his feet and he puts a new weave of compulsion on her and sends her away. Like, you will go away. Now, I'm wondering if he's just reiterating what he's saying or if he has to keep saying it because she's fighting the compulsion. Because he repeatedly says, you will go and wait for me. You will go now and wait for me. Like, he says it several times. And I'm just wondering, only right now, as I'm reading my notes, thinking, maybe because he's struggling to control her more and more and more, that he has to repeat himself.
He is frustrated by her and her resistance to his compulsion.
Yeah. And it's a good thing that she makes some plans now to get away. Otherwise, he might just got too pissed off at her. But anyway, the compulsion works. She's not that strong. Next thing she knows, she's back at her sitting room. She's just about to open the door. She doesn't even realize how she got there. She's just like, holy shit. And she's got this need inside her. She's like, oh, but Gaebril told me I better wait for him. And she's like, no. I've got to fight this. I've got to get my, clear my head. So she heads off to the pensioners' quarters to go and talk to old Linny, Nynaeve's new best friend, her BFF. And I was thinking, I kind of like this idea of the pensioners' quarters. It's very socialist of Andor, don't you think, to have all these social services? I wasn't thinking about it. Like, that's not something I would have thought of when I'd written a book about this kingdom.
Yeah.
So it's like, right, like little details like this, that they have a place for all these old servants that need to retire and their families have moved on, or they can't go back, or their families are dead, or whatever, So they look after their people afterwards. And I'm also surprised that it's still there, that Gaebril hasn't said, fuck all these old people and just, killed them all or got rid of it or whatever.
Probably doesn't even know about it.
Probably not. Least of his worries. But anyway, this place is there. Linny's quarters are neat and tidy, small but comfortable. And she's like, she's walking around inside looking at things. And there's a lot of exposition here, basically a history lesson of Andor and the tower. And she remembers her childhood with Linny. There's some I want to say photos of her, but some paintings of her up there when she was a child. And, she starts thinking about her fight for the Iron Throne after her mother died young of fever. So she was very young, Morgase was, when she had to ascend the throne. And there was a fight for it because of this. The actual queen had died and her daughter was very young.
Did you say the Iron Throne?
Did I say the Iron Throne?
You did.
I'm sorry.
The Lion Throne.
The Lion Throne. Maybe, because, my Google Docs, I'm busy. It's literally written the Iron Throne. I will change it to the Lion Throne. Close enough. One of those
Google.
thrones. Yeah, I'll blame Google for that. Some of this autocorrect is just correcting my stuff. And anyway, there was a war for succession after. It was not a war, but a scuffle, we'll say. But anyway, in the end, she won, obviously. And then Linny comes out. She's like, hey, you're scratching in my shit again. She's like, sorry, I'm here. And Linny tells her, like, yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen you. And Morgase is telling her, like, no, I come to see you every week. And she's telling her, like, no, you haven't been here since the spring. And we're deep into summer now. And this is just freaking her out even more and more. Like, she's lost huge amounts of time. So she's been under compulsion now for several months, maybe half a year at least. I don't know. It's been quite some time.
Maybe.
Almost a year.
So that can't be good for your brain to be under that much compulsion. That's going to leave some lasting effects, I think. And she's like, yeah, so you obviously come for some advice. And she tells her, Morgase is like, no, there's nothing you can help. You can't help me with this problem. And she's good. And Lenny goes, what? The problem with Gaebril? She's like, what do you know about that? And Lenny's like, dude, everyone knows about you and him.
Everybody knows.
This is no secret, like, turns out Morgase is just one of many of his hussies that he has stashed all over the planet. Oh, the palace. Yes, all over the planet as well. But apparently, like 5 of them have rooms inside the palace itself. Like he's having them right there, and it's common knowledge to everyone, except of course to Morgase, who's now looking a bigger and bigger fool. And Lenny's advice to her is just, kick them all out. You're the queen. It's pretty simple. Like if there wasn't a Forsaken doing this to you, it'd be pretty simple. I'm the queen. Get the fuck out of my house. But no, it's not that simple. And there's one mention of one of these hussies that he keeps that he sneaks in and out draped in a cloak.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
One of my notes.
One of my notes as well. Do you have a
Is
note
it the
about
Aes
this?
Sedai?
Is it? A young thing with big eyes or something, as she's described. But why is he keeping her secret? If the tower and everybody knows there's an Aes Sedai in the tower, in the palace, why is he being sneaky about it?
But do they know when he was talking to... So before Lanfear and the rest of the Forsaken show up to give Ravian a bit of a surprise tea party, Lanfear walks in on him, or had observed him talking to that dark friend and this Aes Sedai. And I'm pretty sure the Aes Sedai was under compulsion and may even have been wearing a cloak or something. Okay. I don't think it's known that Gaebril is talking to the Aes Sedai in the tower or in the palace.
All right. I thought it was common knowledge.
That's the only person I could think of.
Yeah. That's the only option. I thought about that, but I thought that was common knowledge and that wouldn't be her if, why hide her identity and sneak her around and stuff. Anyway, okay. If it's not common knowledge, then yes, that tracks. So, anyway, there's a bunch of people. We and Morgase at the same time found out about her supporters as well. The powerful houses that supported Morgase during her succession war, scuffle, should I say. Apparently, they've all been exiled by her. She's vaguely remembering this now. As like Lenny is informing her about all of these things that she's done and that she said. She even had her best friend, Elorian, who was her main supporter from the family. Elayne is named after Elorian's mother, flogged in public. And I looked up. I was like, oh my God, that's pretty hectic. And I went and looked up Elorian, and she runs away and she joins, like the separatist movement, but she never forgives Morgase or Elayne. She never comes back into the circle after that. She always just remains neutral. She's like, oh, I'm done, even when she finds out the truth. But yeah, you can see why.
There's one friend of House Trakan that helps Elayne in the succession, but I think, is she Dylan?
Yes.
Dylan, someone like that?
Yes. She forms a little group of these people that are described in this part of the book that have fled.
Yes.
They come back, and then they form, like, I think there's 5 houses altogether, led by Dylan, to help more Elayne take back the throne. Yeah. So there was a whole bunch of history there as well that I won't go into, and I don't really remember. Okay.
We'll get to it.
Yeah, there's plenty of time for that. Lenny at this point is realizing, like, holy shit, like, there's something very wrong with you, Morgase. This isn't you being silly because you're overly in love with somebody. There's some serious shit going on here. You should go seek help from an Aes Sedai. But Morgase is like, no Aes Sedai. And this distrust of them is not entirely due to the compulsion. It is due to the tower's lack of transparency regarding her daughter. Even when Swan was in charge of the tower, they were keeping her hidden. They were refusing to tell her when she had run away. They were keeping that a secret. So, I mean, Morgase has a legitimate distrust of the tower now, and this link is broken because of what the tower did, not because of what the Forsaken have done. At the moment, Elida won't even reply to letters sent to her. She's not even bothering to lie. She just doesn't even respond. So her eyes are now open about Gaebril. Morgase is like, this can't carry on. And even though she's constantly thinking about Gaebril, like, I should go back to my quarters during this entire time, even though this is coming to her, like, she longs for his touch and all kinds of crap like that. But she's like, all right, I've got to get out of here. I can't do this. All my supporters have gone. My palace has been infiltrated by my staunchest enemies. Obviously, Gaebril can't be trusted. We need to get out of here and establish like a place to rule from outside of Camelin. We need to go have another base of operations where I can be free of all of these people. So she thinks, like, but of course, who can I trust? I need to get out of this place. I need someone I can trust. I do remember a young man named Tel'aran'rhiod. He seems to be very angry, but very loyal. So she sends old Lenny to fetch him and bring him back. So while Lenny's gone fetching this dude, she's waiting in the room, and she's constantly fighting this compulsion to go back to her rooms and going over her history with men, which is not a good one. Taran'rhiod, of course, being the first, a marriage of convenience to lay claim to the throne, a cold man, and yet she had 2 loving children with him, but he died. Then Tom, whose knowledge of Dies Daymar helped her secure the throne in her early days as queen. So this is like remembering, and she's acknowledging the fact that without Tom in the beginning, she wouldn't have been able to hold on to the throne, because those were tumultuous first days, and he helped a lot with playing the Game of Houses with her. I just can't stop, can I? And I was like, oh wow, like this is a nice clear line straight from Morgase's brain that he was essential in those early days. But he left suddenly, and she still doesn't know why. So this is where I mean, obviously, even then, before we spoke about this, when I was reading this, it was like, oh, obviously, what happened to his nephew and how he was turned against the Aes Sedai, and apparently he grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her when he was calling her a puppet and stuff. So he physically accosted her, and then he left, and she still to this day doesn't know why. Of course, now, even after this podcast, we know even more about why he left and the whole Aes Sedai plot behind it. And then she thinks about the next guy in line in her life, old Gareth, old G-Man, who she still believes is a traitor. So that compulsion must have been pretty strong. She's trying to break through a lot of them, but of course she doesn't remember everything, but she still just thinks of him as a traitor, and that she's kicked him out and she doesn't want anything to do with him. And then, of course, she finally remembers the latest man in her life, old Gaebril. I've written the Duis, and she decides, all right, I've had some bad luck with men in the past. I think I just need to get out of here and start afresh. So when old Tel'aran'rhiod returns, another man in her life, she asks him about the loyalty among the people in the palace. Is there anyone? And he's like, in the palace, you're going to be hard pressed to find some loyal people. We're going to have to go out to like
just me.
It's literally just me, dude. We're going to have to go out to like the borders of the land, go find some outlying garrisons to go find some people that are still loyal to you, because everybody here was either new, and then the people that remained had to swear a whole new oath, and not to the queen, but to the throne and to Andor. And she thinks, oh, that's very clever of Gaebril to make sure that these new people are not swearing to the queen, but rather to the throne, since he's going to be in charge of the throne. Even Tel'aran'rhiod had to do it. He also had to take these new oaths, but he was pretending. He's a loyal man. So Tel'aran'rhiod says, look, I know a guy in town. He runs an inn. Our good old buddy, old Basil. Like, here he is again. Rad. He's a Queen's man. He's a good Queen's man. So I'm going to go and into town, into the city now. It's called the Queen's Blessing. I'm going to go and arrange with him to plan our escape, and you can follow me afterwards and just find this place. It's in the new town, or whatever the place is called. So while he's gone, Morgase questions Tel'aran'rhiod's loyalty to Lenny, but just so happens that Lenny she's like, look, everyone's against me, and then there's this one dude that's willing to help me. This one guy this looks too good to be true, which is a good instinct to have. But it turns out that Lenny saw him in the stables after he was forced to swear these new oaths, and she saw him on his knees crying as he re-swore his original oaths, adding her by name and cutting himself with his sword in the old way to prove that, to re-swear his oaths and his loyalty to her. Like, as we know, he's totally in love with her as well. It's not just a loyalty thing, but the dude's a legend. And and Lenny also asks Morgase, like, why do you keep poking the bear with this guy, telling him that he's a child and that he's young and everything. Why do you keep angering him? He's not that much older. I mean, you are not that much older than him. You were, you were playing with
You're
your
playing
dolls.
with dolls when you was
Yeah.
born. Yeah,
Exactly. It's like, and Linny's like, old nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Check out this young man who's so loyal to you. Like, she obviously sees that he's totally in love with her. But of course, and look, you can't blame Morgase for not seeing these things. Her brain is basically pulp at this moment. So they get their disguises
and right
on.
now she should not be focused on relationships.
No.
Like, she's got bigger fish to fry than who her next boyfriend is going to be.
Look, we've just gone through a list of the previous men in her life. It's not a good it's not a good thing. Let's just leave it.
Time.
None of it ended well. Now's not the time. So disguises on again with the disguises. She also just makes her hair black. There we go, disguised. That seems to be the go-to one. And she and Linny slip out of the palace and they go to meet old Tel'aran'rhiod at the Queen's blessing. On the way there, they meet some people. They're asking for directions. They're getting a feel. The general populace is not happy with her. Taxes are up. There's new laws that are making people's lives difficult, and there's whispers amongst some people that perhaps Andor is done with queens. So she's very concerned about all this, but obviously she accepts her responsibility, even though she doesn't know what's happened to her, but it's her fault. She's the queen. When you're the boss, everything's your fault. They get to the Queen's blessing. They meet old Basil Gill. He's there with Lamgwin, old droopy-eyed fighting legend, and his new girlfriend, Brienne Taborwin, who is clearly Kyrenian. She has the accent and is clearly nobly born as well. How far they have fallen. So I was like, mentioning this woman by name is something. So I'm going to go Google her. So went and found out, and she was actually at the party that Rand and them first got to in book 1 or 2. When was it?
2. Barthanes' Manor.
When they were in Barthanes' Manor and they were looking for the Waygate, and Rand was approached by all these women who were making very uncomfortable advances at him. This was one of the women. So we've seen her before.
She was the third one. There were 2 of them that came up to Rand and sort of like propositioned him. And then a third one showed up and was sort of like a bit older than the other 2 and made them sort of like out to be idiots and sort of saying like, if you really wanted to experience the education that an older woman could offer. And I think Tom commented on, like what I hear about that one would make your toes curl. And here she is.
Lamgwin's, she is again.
Lamgwin's girlfriend.
Yeah, now she's hooked up with Lamgwin, and she tells her like Lamgwin's like, I'm a good queen's man. Basil's like, yeah, me too, good queen's man. And she's like, I don't give a fuck about you. To be honest, Lamgwin is your man, and I'm with Lamgwin. So like, what he feels for you, I feel 10 times for him. So wherever he goes, I go. So she's like, all right, fine. And that's their little troop of people that they have put together to retake the kingdom. An overweight old innkeeper, Lamgwin the destroyer, and some ex-Kyrenian noble lady. So, all right. Well, and Linny. Let's not forget Linny. Linny the legend.
An old lady.
A very old lady.
But she says about Basil, because Basil drops a hint. He says, I haven't worn this stuff since the Aiel War.
Ah, yeah.
So Basil fought in a war, and Morgase thinks to herself, he should look ridiculous in this, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
So he's got his sword belt on and he's comfortable with it. He's got his like scale armor, like he actually knows what he's about. And I also have this like comical memory of him, the picture of him with his helmet, and he's sort of like, but Morgase here says he should look ridiculous, but he doesn't. So
he wasn't always an innkeeper.
No, I want to put a bit more faith in old Bazza.
Old Bazza. All right. So anyway, that's their group, the party of 5. Tel'aran'rhiod suggests that, look, riding for Core Springs, we need to go get Gareth. And she's like, oh, God damn it, Gareth. But she realizes, okay, that's probably the best plan. I mean, if only because, if she comes back with Gareth, people will, some people will come back and follow her again because of him.
They'll listen to him, yeah.
They'll listen to him, even if they don't like me very much anymore. And also, even if they follow him, not because of me or him, just because they know, like, he'll probably win every battle that we're in to retake the throne. If we've got him at the lead, we're likely to win. So, all right, we'll go get Gareth, and off they go. That's the plan. Off to Core Springs. So, yeah, everybody's going to be heading up in the same direction. So that's the end of her point of view. And now we get old Padan Fain's point of view. Pain Fain's here. He is skulking about in the dark in the corridors of the White Tower like he owns the fucking place. It's the middle of the night, early hours of the morning. No one's there, and he can feel Rand far away. He can't figure out where he is, but he knows he's alive. But he can feel the dagger even stronger. So he's on a mission now. He's going to go find that dagger and finally claim it back. So he knows exactly where it is because he can feel it as part of him, and he goes straight to a locked storeroom. And there's just a lock on it. And he's like, oh, what a ridiculous thing, just this lock on it. And I'm thinking, this has totally got to be warded, right? Which it is. So he picks the lock and lets himself in. It's all dusty floors, storeroom kind of thing. And he heads to the one place where he finds the box, which is lead lined, like it's got kryptonite in it or something, which is, I suppose, is basically true. And there is his dagger from Shadow Logoth in there. And he picks it up and he has this like stretching cat kind of like, moment. I wrote kind of like when Thanos puts the Infinity Stones in his gauntlet, mixed with Jerry Maguire's "You complete me" speech. There you get a basic idea of what it's like. And a cat stretching in the sun. There's your third option. Put that all together in your mind. So as he grabs it, he is now completed. And just then, an Accepted enters the room, and he jumps at her in a second and slices her across the cheek with a dagger. Of course, she starts puffing up. She gets all, blackened and bloated. And while she's dying on the floor, painfully and silently and slowly, Elviaran pops her head in and wraps Fane up with some air. Well, she wraps him up before she even pops her head in, but that's besides the point. And comes in and she's like, dude, did you not think that this room would be warded? This Accepted was put on duty to watch the door, and her job was to actually come and warn me if someone tried to get in here. But instead, she stuck her head in the door, and now she's dying. And like throughout this entire conversation, this Accepted is lying on the floor, dying in the most horrible and painful way. Like, I didn't realize that it took that long for people to die with the dagger. I don't know if it's because she was working with the power that she lasted a bit longer, like her resilience was there a bit longer, but wow, it is not a nice way to go. And Fane thinks to himself as well, like looking at her going like, whoa, why isn't she sounding the alarm to Elviaran, that is? And why is she not helping that Accepted? I mean, I know that she's a goner, but I mean, a nicer die would at least try to help and do something. So there's something up with her. So we get our official, explanation here and discovery that Elviaran is Black Ajah. He tells her his life story in detail, describing Shai'l Ghul and how he's walked up the slopes and he's seen Thakandar and the rolling seas of mist and blah blah blah. And her eyes are huge. She's literally impressed by this guy. And that's the official. And he has the official discovery that she's Black Ajah, and he calls her that. And she says she denies the Black Ajah's existence at all, and even mentioning that during Swan's questioning, or as Vili likes to call it, torture. Swan did try to warn Elida about the Black Ajah, but Elida wouldn't, she was like, no, that's a myth and blah, blah, blah. I'm just thinking, oh, God damn it.
Idiotic.
Like Elida probably thought like, oh, she's just trying to say anything to get out of being tortured. And this is, like, come on, man, come on. But anyway, we'll just put another notch of stupidity in Elida's belt. So she eventually lets him go. Well, not before leaving the room, of course. She can't trust this crazy dude. But she's like, all right, because after telling her this whole story about his life and where he's been to Shai'l Ghul, he's talked to the Dark One himself. She says, like, all right, she can't be sure what his position is amongst the Dark Friends, but he seems to be pretty high up. So, like, I'm going to leave you alone, and I will clean up this mess of dead Accepted that you've left over here, and lets him go, basically. He then heads out of the tower with his newly acquired dagger, or reacquired dagger, and goes to his followers outside of Tarvalin, which I'm assuming is probably a bunch of Trollocs and Fades, and what is potentially left of the human Dark Friends. And that's how we end.
Yeah.
Stuff
Seems like Elviaran did not know exactly who Paden Fane was. Like,
no.
She might have known his name or maybe even recognized him, but she certainly did not know what part he plays. And I guess that's also got to do with the fact that he is now he doesn't consider himself a Dark Friend.
Mm-mm.
He hates the Shadow.
Yeah.
But yeah, she certainly was impressed by his he's telling of the Shyle Ghoul story.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, I'd heard story, and then like, well, stops herself, like. But yeah, clearly Black Ajah. Like, if you did not know, you know now. Like, as new first-time readers, this is the point where you go, oh fuck, she's Black Ajah.
And I'd forgotten about that, Joe. I'm glad you pointed that out because, I mean, I've always known and I'm constantly looking at Alviarin as a Black Ajah sister. But you're right. This is the first time that a reader, I think, it would be the first time that a reader would get that.
Yeah, because she's really only just been introduced. I mean, Elida, a couple of books back, meets her in the hallway. They have that discussion, like, this is my plan, and that's it. And then she's Amyrlin, and this is her keeper.
Alviarin is introduced in book 2. She's in Feldara.
Of course she is.
She teaches the girls one of their lessons on the way to the tower as well.
She teaches them compulsion.
So she's like sprinkled in slowly,
yeah.
And then she's shown to be somewhat subversive, colluding with Elida. And then when she's Elida's keeper, she's also acting in sort of like a somewhat disrespectful way towards Elida. Like Elida, from her point of view, doesn't like the way that Alviarin doesn't seem to be too scared of her or anything like that. And then here the final reveal, and now it all makes sense. Of course, that's why she was so confident around Elida. She's got a whole other operation happening at the same time.
And Fane tries to like tempt her with power as well. I can make sure you get the top spot. And Alviarin's like, I don't want the top spot. I'm happy. I'm exactly where I want to be.
Yeah,
we'll let Elida pretend
Elida with this right now.
Yeah, she's like, we'll let Elida pretend that she's in charge and she can take the fall for everything as well. Like, I'm in the perfect position. I'm exactly where I want to be.
No, she is devious. Head of the Black Ajah.
Yeah, not just any old Black Ajah.
Yeah. Villy, did you have anything to say about Morgase and her little adventure and her little party that she's gathered?
I'm just happy she's finally getting out of her trance and getting that inner strength to break away from it, because man, that was just tedious. Scantily dressed, kept as a sex slave.
Yeah. And Ravin watching her and Ultima have a conversation with like a smirk on his face. And her now finding out he's boning Ultima as well. So he was just sitting there like enjoying his two little pets having a little moment together. Like, what another lecherous.
He is a Forsaken,
It's as bad as they come.
Yeah. That's the least bad thing he did that day.
It's always mentioned when he's using compulsion on her that her skin tingles. It's that cold feeling. So you can tell whenever he uses the weave on her. What else did I have here? I had a couple of things about Tom, actually.
Ooh.
It's interesting that Tom was the Trakand house bard before they took the throne and he became the court bard. So he's been with the Trakand family since, like you said, Joe, he helped Morgase gain the throne. Did you know that Taran'rhiod died in a hunting accident?
Yeah, I do now. I read it in this chapter.
Arranged by Tom.
What?
Because Tom caught wind of a plot by Taran'rhiod to kill Morgase, to become the first king of Andor. So yes, Nynaeve, Tom has dabbled in some court intrigue before, arranged for the death of Taran'rhiod Damodred, who is Moiraine's half-brother. I see you guys doing the mental math. Okay, wait.
That meme of that lady with all those like math symbols. That's what's
in
happening.
Cairhien, in the tower, actually, the Aes Sedai wanted to see Moiraine become the queen of Cairhien. And that's one of the reasons why she ran away from the tower and hardly ever went back. She didn't want anything to do with that. I mean, it's the whole Dragon Reborn search thing, obviously, but she ran from the tower to also escape that whole plan the tower had for her. And when she did not become the queen, Galdrian Rioton became the king of Cairhien. In the meantime, Taran'rhiod, who's also from a prominent house in Cairhien, Taran'rhiod Damodred, he had married Tigraine, Rand's mom.
Yep.
And then when Tigraine vanished and Morgase became queen and married him to sort of seal the links between Andor and Cairhien,
Yeah.
Taran'gale planned for Morgase's death so that he could become the king of Andor.
And that's why Morgase remembers him as a cold man, cold and distant.
Exactly.
Oh, mind blowing.
Crazy. Yeah. I just had a note here that Morgase didn't know about Owen, like that you called that out, Joe. Like she still doesn't know why Tom left and why he flew into a fit of rage, which I just thought was pretty tragic. You know, how sad for their relationship to end that way after everything Tom had done for her. Not only had he helped her hang on to the throne, he saved her life.
Yeah. Whoa.
And I also, when you mentioned earlier that Talonvor came in and he looked at her cleavage, I think what's happened in that first instance, when he comes to talk about the rebellion in the Two Rivers, is he looks at the way that she's dressed disapprovingly.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't make that clear. No, he's not, it's not a lech.
You just said that he looked at her cleavage and then he told her about the thing. And it wasn't a Gaebril look. It was a disapproving
I kind of glossed over the fact that he's constantly angry at her throughout this entire exchange, all the exchanges he has during that
because
chapter.
He's frustrated and disappointed with her. And Morgase actually gets a bit worked up because he's looking her in the eye.
Yeah.
Like, it's Lenny, and even Morgase comment on her dress when she's in Lenny's room later. But Talonvor makes a point of looking her in the eye. He's not distracted by any of the stuff. Like, he is fully invested in her as a person and her as a ruler, and not just as a sex object, which I thought was cool. Like, I remember reading these books in the beginning, not liking Talonvor at all. But now I think he's a fucking legend, like man alone in the palace between all these people that have turned against Morgase, and he's the one that's sort of like cutting his arm and swearing the old oaths. I mean, the oath he swears is also quite intense. Let me pull it up quickly. He was on his knees, tears streaming down his face. He alternated apologizing to you and repeating the old oath, not just to the Queen of Andor, but to Queen Morgase of Andor. He swore in the old way on his sword, slicing his arm to show he would shed his last drop before breaking it. I know something of men, girl. That one will follow you against an army with nothing but his bare hands.
But he also loves her.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely he does.
So it's a little bit of obsession.
yeah, a little bit of an obsession, slicing himself in the stables.
But he's not acting on it.
No, I'm just saying.
When he probably has every opportunity to. Like, you can tell his intentions are pure.
It's not all of his intentions is to be a loyal queen's man. He's in love with the queen.
No, but they make a point of saying he's loyal to her. That's why he names her. He's loyal to her because he loves her.
And Linny also mentions that she knows men, and she's taught Morgase about men, and she's taught her that men are only good for 3 things.
Dancing.
And dancing is one of them. I imagine the other 2 are fucking and fighting. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I didn't take anything down, but I think
keep quiet.
It's implied. That's about all that I had. Yeah. Anything else from you guys?
That is all.
Pulling amps.
Well, in that case, let's move on over to our favorite moments. Villy, what was your favorite moment?
It's Morgase coming out of a stupor. It's
snap.
By far, it's terrible seeing people compelled to do things that they're not aware of what they're doing for so long. And also, a regal woman like she is, being reduced to literally being a sex slave.
Yeah.
One of many.
Yeah.
By a pretty devious Gaebril.
Yeah. I had the same favorite moment and added into that those sort of glimpses into Tom's past as well. That whole stretch is pretty great. How about you, Joe?
It's also Morgase related. Yeah, totally. That first time that Nynaeve bitched and moaned, that one. No, definitely Talonvor and his oath. when Linny tells her that he cut
Oh, yeah.
himself, that he rewrote it, and he was crying and he was on his knees, and like that brought a tear to my eye while I was reading it. I was like, "God, dude!"
Yeah. I wrote down the page number so that I could read it again, because when I read it, I started highlighting the whole thing. I was like, I'm coloring in this whole page with a green highlight.
Yeah.
I should just write down the page number and read it out. It's awesome. I had one honorable mention, which is, surprise, surprise, Fane and Alviarin's interaction. I like getting these glimpses into the bad guys, right? Even the chapter with Liandrin was insightful, and gives them just a bit more. They're not just a shadow on the wall, you know. They're not just a two-dimensional enemy. Like getting in behind their points of view and like seeing how they think and stuff is interesting, if not, you know, favorite worthy.
Yeah,
but still cool. Still cool to see.
No, I agree with
Look,
you.
I mean,
there,
Billy-
definitely.
Yeah, well, you're a dark friend, Vin. Of course you do. But I mean, Billy's gone full dark friend, so you don't have to be shy to like, your favorite moment is now dark friend moment. I loved it when that Forsaken ripped the skin off that person. That was my favorite moment. It's okay, go for it. With 43
Can't make
episodes.
jokes like that while I'm sneezing, Jody.
These chapters were a little bit light on the dark friends this time round, but the spider made her appearance. Just showed how quickly she takes control.
Yeah, there was Moghedien. There was 11 Black Ajah, Baden Fane. There was a lot of dark friend action in these chapters.
12 Black Ajah if you count Alviarin.
Indeed. The head of the Black Ajah. Uh-huh.
All right. Well, then, to our listeners, send us your favorite moments. Send us your thoughts and your theories and anything else you want to say to us. We're still waiting for a cool sign-off. So I don't know how this one's going to go. We'll have to play it by ear.
May you shit on whatever you please.
Yes,
There you go.
had a lot of tweets and stuff from people saying shitting on things, shitting in milk, loving it. So your intro today was great.
Yeah.
But people can reach out to us using any of the social media links in the episode description below. Next time on Blood and Ashes, we will be covering chapters 20 through 25. Dun, dun, dun.
That's six
Six
chapters again.
Oh, short little ones.
All right.
They're all dinky. Chapter 20 is Jangai Pass, and chapter 25 is Dreams of Galad.
Dreams Galad is
Saucy.
having, or are people dreaming of Galad? Ooh.
The Dreams of Galad.
I think people are dreaming of Galad. Nynaeve.
Yeah, quite openly, like in the middle of the day with their eyes wide open. All right. Well, then, if there's nothing else, guys, I will revert to my old sign-off and say I will bid you both a fond adieu and see you next time.
Adios.
Adios.